mute. Okay, I think we should be live. Yeah, I'm seeing it coming up. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live stream results special of the World of Brickfilms podcast. I'm your host, William of AW Studios. Joining with me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Sean Willis of Sully.
Hello again.
And starting us off, we've got a couple of we've got quite a few special guests coming up later on. But starting off, we've got two of the judges, Aero Nomad and Malzul.
Hello, hello.
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 And we also have the one of the designers of the the designer of one of the THAC 2025 logos, and also the sort of creator of the Creative Spark special prize, Ladon.
Ooh, hello.
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 Yeah, so we've got quite
Nice to have you here.
yeah. So we got a kind of like a first of all, I was going to start off just doing like where everyone was just like all on the stream at once, but I thought that would be a bit chaotic, and I like the format that we do with the live streams generally. So we've got a lineup of different guests coming up. Sort of later on, we're going to have Slurpy, who came fourth place. We will have Super Duck, who came third, and also Sully, who came second place. So we'll be speaking to all of them later, and also we'll be sort of talking about the top 10 quite in depth. So we've got a sort of a big kind of lineup. But yeah, so first of all, it's actually quite funny actually being here at this point when like. I think this is maybe the first time we've done the podcast. We've done the live streams and everything where like Penta, you weren't actually kind of involved in the sort of judging process at all.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, since you started hosting THAC, this is the first one where I wasn't a judge because I wanted to enter for the 20th anniversary THAC.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I won't have any sort of insider knowledge of the discussions between the judges for the placements.
Yeah, I guess I want to be kind of careful with like how much I say about like, because obviously as judges we don't want to kind of say like sort of everything that goes on, but it's I think one of the things that I guess we always say when it comes to sort of which ones we consider, and like when it comes to what makes like I guess this time it's top 30. It takes a lot of discussion. There's a lot of like the process behind it. We spend, obviously we all come individually with our own kind of like our own ballots first off, and then we'll have like a week long sort of discussion period. I think this time especially we had quite a long time. We kind of had multiple kind of like voice calls where we were kind of like trying to iron it all out. And I know I've said this before, but like the getting to just to get to like the top 30, just to narrowing it down to 30 was quite a challenge because it was such a stacked lineup, and there were so many amazing films beyond just the top 10 top 30 so it's great to have time to I guess sort of discuss that as well, I guess you guys don't know what like how kind of like insight you want to give into like the actual sort of your experience kind of judging.
It was certainly the most films I've ever had on a short list or like a favorites list for one of these contests. So it was definitely tough to narrow it down, and a little bit daunting too, because 194 films is a lot of films to watch at all, but watch intently and trying to analyze them as well. Takes a special level of focus, so it took me a few different sittings to get through them all, and even after that there were films that I had to give a second look, and something I really appreciate about the judges' discussion time is there were some films that maybe I just saw them at a bad time the first time and didn't quite take them in as much as that I needed to, so the discussion really helped kind of highlight some of those films, and I was able to rewatch them and like add them to my favorites list. So
Yeah, I'll agree on that. The discussion part really did help with kind of narrowing it down, especially with how many there were.
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Will not deny that I may have gone through more popcorn than I should have.
Popcorn's a good idea. I gotta take notes for next time.
For sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
we do think of the discussion period as the most important thing, and of course, since I didn't see the discussion this time. It did mean that, like, usually I'm thinking if people are like in the chat when the results are happening, and if they're like, oh, that's lower than I expected, or that's higher than I expected, or whatever, I'm usually the one thinking, oh, if you had seen the judges' discussion, you'd understand how recent it was, how much discussion went into it, and everything. But now I was getting the results at the same time as everyone else. So if I was surprised by something, I was thinking, oh, well, I'm sure it was well reasoned by the judges and all that.
Yeah, getting to see like some of the behind the scenes gives me a whole new perspective on how films are ranked in these contests. Just with my own experience of my own ballot and seeing where things kind of finally shuffled out, it's crazy how much the list changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always interesting to kind of see behind the curtain when you're actually doing it.
Yeah, so it was a different experience for me, but actually I really enjoyed being able to be on a THAC results live stream, and like, each placement was a surprise to me. I didn't know exactly what was coming next, so it was fun to finally be able to do that again.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was fun to discuss a lot of these films in more detail and debate, and there's some films that I fought for and I bled for.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's crazy how much, like, and I'm sure a lot of people probably wouldn't realize this, like how much we really kind of scrutinize, like, what should be, like number 14th, what should be number 15th, like all these things are like so kind of like, we go back and forth on them so much, yeah, no, it's a process which I guess it comes to a surprise to a lot of people when they kind of are like doing it, like judging it, like having judged for the first time and seeing it from like behind the curtain, yeah, no, it's funny. I think especially because like I kept forgetting that you weren't entering this year. Actually, I remember, like, because I was so used to like, in recent years, you've been making some like really, sort of big entries. Obviously, like Brawl coming first place last year, and then also, films like Unrated Dedication and all that kind of stuff. It's like, almost like I absolutely did forget that you weren't going to be like in the playlist, and I was like waiting to see your film.
It's really sad that I couldn't join this time, especially it being the 20th anniversary. But I'm glad I was still able to be a part of it in some way. So that's nice.
Yeah, definitely. I think I probably did mention this before, actually, with the like maybe in the previous THAC live stream, but it was really funny because there were so many people who wanted to be a part of it, actually entering, that I actually struggled to get people who were going to be able to judge. So it was, I really did appreciate, I think you reached out to me first, I think, saying that, like, I'm not going to be able to make it, so,
Yeah. I do remember that we had the word from Aeronomad really early on, so it was like, oh my god, get Aeronomad to be a judge, like somebody who can judge.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely probably wouldn't have. I probably wouldn't have chosen to reach out to you otherwise, because like initially, because like I would have wanted to see a film from you. So yeah.
Yeah.
All my
you don't
Legos
wanna have
are
people who you hope
in
are
boxes
gonna
at the
enter
moment. All my camera gear and stop motion, all of it's just in boxes.
Yeah. Well, what are the? How is it looking for Brawl this year?
It's a hope, but it might still be in boxes at that point.
Okay.
How long has
Definitely
Brawl
by
been going
THAC
now?
next year.
What was that?
Oh, like how long has Brawl been going now? If THAC is 20.
Yeah, Brawl is since 2008.
Right.
Yeah. So do you remember when Bricks Motion started on the refugee camp, as it was called then?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's when Brawl started. It was on the refugee camp, and it was just a very like small, just run by a random, would have been essentially a random kid at the time, Munza Papa. and it only had 11 entries the first time. I was one of them. I was also a random kid at the time.
That's funny.
Do you remember around that point in time, people would show up and they'd sort of suggest like, I'm gonna run the 2-hour animation contest or the 2-day animation contest.
I definitely remember like shooting a lot of those ideas down, being like, "That's not feasible. That's not really going to be worth your." Like, I remember a couple of those, like, just being like, "No, maybe don't do that."
Yeah,
And trying to
that's
being like trying to be like helpful, like constructive at least. Be like, "Oh, well, maybe not that, but maybe like 8-hour could be okay."
that's the lore.
Give yourself time
essentially.
Yeah.
The lore around Brawl is like it came out around the time when people were making all these suggestions, and these suggestions would usually be shot down by the more experienced members who've been around for longer.
Where it's like, don't bother.
Yeah, yeah.
But like, yeah, because Brawl is like the fight one, right? Where it's just like you have to have like a fight in your.
No, that's just the name just stands for Brickfilm Rapidly all week long. But I've always
weird.
theorized.
Oh, it's a week long one, right?
I've always theorized that Brawl didn't get as much objection because it had a catchier name, whereas all the other ones rhymed with pack. It was like, 2-pack or 2D back, or it was always something ack. So it made them seem like just cheap rip-offs to the older members. But then
in my head, Brawl was a. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Munzbub suggested Brawl, and it just kind of sounded more catchy, like, oh, Brawl, Brickfilm Rapidly all week long. It's a good acronym. So I think it actually had a bit more traction at the start as just a suggestion.
And I feel like what's happening in my head is like I'm probably confusing Brawl with. There were definitely a number of brick films in that era that had incredibly good fight choreography I'm like lumping it all together as one. But I remember like Nas, was it Nas Nibiris or Nas Deboris or however you want to. I remember there was one he did. It was 24 FPS, and I was like, cool, I'm out. Never mind. I don't think after I saw that, I don't think I even finished a single brick film after that point. I was like, you know what? I don't even need to try. Like everyone's already doing so much more that I'm like, you know what? This is just great. That's fantastic. But also, I can't even try that.
Yeah, Grace was always one of the most amazing things I'd ever seen when I was a kid starting out.
It was nuts.
But you might remember the Fight Club trend on the forum. That might be what you're mixing it up with.
I think so. Yeah, maybe. There were a lot of trends for a lot of time there. Definitely, things were moving very fast with that stuff. But yeah, right. Likely, yeah. I think just the word, the name Brawl, probably like sort of got lumped into my head as I was recategorizing over the years. But I don't mean to derail us off of THAC, obviously, because THAC is the big and big excitement today.
To kind of like smoothly kind of like segue into that was something that was kind of related to that actually. It is kind of funny because when we were looking at what we wanted to do for a THAC 2025 logo, we did think a lot. I think quite early on, like probably like looking back to like a year ago when we were first thinking about like, okay, so next year it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a 20th anniversary. We need to kind of really have like we need like a logo that really kind of shows that. And we took a lot of inspiration from the Brawl 2018 logo, which was kind of like, it took frames from different films from the years, and it was, sort of commemorating the 10th anniversary of Brawl. And it was kind of it's really funny looking at that now and thinking that 2018, it doesn't seem like, when you compare that to like 2008, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it's that long ago. And yet, like, we're looking at like the time between, we're so much closer to the 20th anniversary of Brawl than we are from the 10th anniversary now. And that's just kind of crazy to think about. Like in a few years' time, well, actually in 3 years' time, we're going to have to be thinking about, we're going to have to do a 20th anniversary of Brawl, which is just kind of a crazy thing to have to think about.
Crazy.
It's interesting actually because, so obviously you've done, this year, obviously you designed one of the two THAC logos this year, and it was such the intro as well, the kind of the sort of 16-second like intro sequence where it kind of zooms out is
Marvel
was,
Cinematic Universe.
yeah, that was such a cool design, and yeah, I really appreciate you coming out with that. That was a really great design. Yeah.
It was fun.
I guess technically I had some animation in a good number of the films, being in the logo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
people really responded greatly to that video intro for the announcement video, and also adding it into their own entries. So it does make us think like maybe we're gonna have to start making a video intro, maybe slightly shorter ones. 'Cause watching the full playlist, and there was like a 16-second intro and loads of the 194 entries. We were kind of like, okay, next time we'll do a shorter video intro to offer to people.
Yeah, I think we kind of need
Like a
it.
full minute long.
I think having that kind of like really big intro sequence, it really did work for, you know, making the 20th anniversary feel really epic. And I do think that like I do like the idea of doing that, like moving forward, continuing to kind of do like an animated intro. But I imagine that like if it's like just like THAC, like next year's THAC, it's probably not going to be. We're probably not going to have to go quite as crazy about like, you know, because it's not like, wow, it's a 20th one, but like, you know, so like having that longer sequence, I kind of feels like it's sort of justified with it being, you know, a special one. It kind of needs to feel epic.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's just people seem to really respond to it strongly. There were so many comments on the announcement videos saying, "Wow, cool intro."
yeah. And also as well, you know, I think big shout out to James Tiny Angry Dog, who also made the other logo, and I was really happy to see that you know, a variety of different versions of the logos that we used in the different entries. There was across the board. It was quite varied. Obviously, there were a lot of people who had the animated intro, but there were also a lot that used the different versions, including especially I really liked the you know, the gold one. You know, the black the sort of black text and gold background. That one was really good. And sort of James's logo as well. So it was really nice seeing that kind of variety.
I'm trying to think if any films in particular stood out to me as having creative uses of the logo. I think we see them more in Brawl than THAC, but I can't remember any off the top of my head.
Actually, a big shout out to JYB Animations, who actually made like sort of customized their own kind of like version of the logo, and actually does segue kind of really naturally to what I wanted to also mention as well, actually, about the Creative Spark prize, which you actually kind of Ladon kind of came up with initially, and it was actually really funny because you mentioned it kind of not long, I think sort of maybe like within the week of the sort of THAC announcement, you know, back in December. You messaged me with the idea, and I really liked the idea. I was like, yeah, I got to put a pin on that, because that sounds like a nice way of kind of having, you know, yet another prize. And then I was like, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. And then it got to like a couple of days before the actual results, and I was like, oh, we still need to talk about that, actually. So I was like, I let the judges know, like, oh, by the way, guys, there's going to be this other prize. We need to actually discuss what we're going to do. But yes, lots
to do.
Yeah,
lots to do around the THAC time of year.
Yeah, so I really appreciate like you kind of like, even though it was kind of like last minute by the time that I kind of like was like, I reminded you like, oh, by the way, we need to do this. We kind of on the night before the actual results, we actually kind of had a quite a long discussion thinking about like what would be a really good prize to give, and then I think that's when we kind of came to the decision to pick the light kit, which I actually have, and it was really good because I could actually kind of demonstrate it, and I could kind of vouch for it being like something which I use and really like. But I guess, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about like how you came up with, I guess, the concept behind it?
Well, yeah, I guess we have to work backwards from that too. Like, I think that the important part was that I didn't want that to intrude on or take anything away from the judging process. I preferred that it wasn't in mind for judges, so they weren't like, oh well, maybe we like this one. Oh well, maybe we can give this one the other prize instead. Like I wanted to be separate to that, so it wasn't really in consideration during like the judging process. And then it's also very signature for THAC for it to be last minute of a decision anyway, so it kind of made sense. So that all kind of lined up for me. The idea when I first pitched it was I knew that I did release a fair number of brick films. There were also a number that didn't ever get finished, and I was like, usually it was because I was like, well, that was a bit of a swing. I can't really finish that. This is like too far out of my element, or I don't like it anymore, or I got bored, or whatever. Like as you do, or as I do at least. And I wanted to throw something in there because it's the 20th anniversary as well, and making it kind of like a throwback for myself, but also throwing something in there that if someone had entered who had been very impressive, but also showed that they could likely really use a bit of a lighting of their fuse, like a bit of a, I guess like the Creative Spark name kind of ended up referencing that too, out of just by coincidence. But the idea of like someone maybe needing a bit more polish on one element of their film, but also being really impressive in the fact that like they pulled off something that was very impressive, and they were likely earlier in their learning of the craft as well. And just trying to find, and it's also like we couldn't choose a prize we even knew who it was going to be, because we didn't want it to be like, well, if someone had been like, well, this film is only good in its lighting, we were like, well, we can't give them a lighting kit. That seems silly if they're already using that. Like, we don't want to double down on their lighting abilities. So it definitely had to be a film that had been chosen that we could then figure out what would be a great tool to add to that filmmaker's arsenal to try and like even improve their skills and push them forward a bit too. But
yeah, it's an interesting way
of rambling
thinking about the prizes. Yeah, to choose the film before choosing the prize is interesting, because I mean, I guess sometimes it does feel like we have these contests and we give people prizes, but oftentimes the people who win, they're the people who already have equipment, like, you know, they already have Dragon Frame, or they already have brick stuff lights, they already have a lot of Lego.
Totally. Yeah, and it's a weird one, because like it's the idea of choosing the winning film because it showed promise, and then figuring out what it was that we could do to give them the tool, like a specific tool that we chose that would be, to us, would be a good improvement. If we'd just given out a gift card for money, it's like, well, yeah, buy whatever you want. Like, the filmmaker may not know what they actually could use next. They might spend it in the wrong place, or they might just buy more bricks or whatever. But I think, and even for me, like, I haven't, apart from doing some 3D stuff with Lego, like a few years ago, I haven't actually touched brick filming in a long time. But learning how to light from Lego was actually super important when it came to live action filmmaking. And I was like, oh, cool. As soon as you suggested the light kit, I was like, totally, that is exactly what needs to happen here, where it's like a 3-point light kit is important for everything you can do going forward. Even if you end up not animating in a few years, you still have that memory of how to light a scene with 3 lights, which is super important for going forward into even like single like shooter like film projects, or even like on a set. Like, knowing how that actually works is important, so like the fundamentals of it. So I think that was why I was kind of drawn to that prize, especially because I figured it was a great choice for anyone going forward who wanted to pursue filmmaking. Even getting used to it on a miniature scale is still the same thing, really.
Yeah, that does make me think just now that like nowadays in brick filming there are a lot of people who push like dramatic lighting and in-set lighting and stuff. But when you were making most of your brick films, like, I feel like lighting wasn't really focused on as much. It was more just sort of functional. But your stuff was really interesting, like Seeing Red and Bounty have way more interesting lighting than most of what's going on at the time.
Yeah, like with Bounty, I know there was a scene in the hallway where I was animating ceiling tiles to try and cast like a moving shadow texture over a scene. but my lighting was still. I had to use a like an architect's lamp. Like it was still a like a desk lamp for everything. So you'd be learning how to shape light using like paper and cardboard and sort of like restricting where lighting was going, but you'd still only have a lamp as your controllable light because like LEDs weren't stable enough at that point to not flicker between frames. So you had to really have like a good solid like power source and a good light source that wouldn't flicker. So then you'd have like solid light. But yeah, I don't think anyone was really doing much with LEDs at that point. Maybe once in a while, and it would be very like specialized. Like someone would do it, like, oh, that's really cool use of like what that one LED bulb you used, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's
very, very rare ones. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting as well. I think when it comes to lighting, because like you know, I think it can't be stressed enough how much it adds so much to like the actual image quality of a film, and I think it's something which I'd want to kind of like, you know, for anyone who's kind of, I guess, trying things out and who's quite sort of maybe quite new to brick filming, one thing I'd really kind of stress is that like, even if you don't have the best like image quality, like maybe it's at like maybe, you know, even if it's like 720p rather than being like full HD or whatever, like the lighting is so much of what can really add a quality to a film, and they're kind of having a 3-point light sort of set up, but also having very motivated lighting, thinking about, you know, what the lighting is doing in universe, in the story, and also just having you know, because I think like it's crazy. Like I look back to so the first films that I did with this webcam, which I'm actually using just to for stream at the moment. But you know, C920, when I was starting out, like I started using it in 2016. Was when I first had the webcam, and my early films with the webcam, like it doesn't look like it's the same webcam that I'm using now, and even now looking at you know, what I've been able to do with this light kit, you know, versus with the lights I was using before then, I can even then see a huge difference, even though I've only been using them for like a couple of years. And there's actually only been one film released on my channel that actually since I've been using the light kit, because I've been slow on releasing stuff. But no, it's amazing seeing like how much of a difference it makes, and it's it's crazy.
Well, like I think even professional lighting is more important to me than camera, simply because like
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
like people aren't always going to be looking at details. They're going to be looking at the full image and the full and the thing that's pulling you in. But I'm just looking back and forth between like the top 10 films here, and would you say that in the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years, there's been a stronger push for SLR and even like sort of like more, not professional cameras, but like even like fixed lens cameras, but being used for brick filming versus webcam stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it used to be pretty much all webcams.
Oh yeah, I remember the day that like. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
Like Night Owl had a DSLR and Pentax lenses way back, but that was super, like, oh, you know, that's for Night Owl, you know, that's for somebody who's really into that.
I remember the exact. I don't remember what day it was. I remember the exact moment when Revman posted his first SLR test he'd done, and we all were just confused. We were like, "Wait, what have you done? Like, that's not possible. You used a what? You used a real camera?" And we're just like, we're all like, sort of, I wonder if I should buy a second QuickCam 4000 and stick that other giant golf ball in my set from the other, so I can do a 2-camera rig, capturing simultaneously, so I get more frames done. I can animate faster. And he's like, yeah, but have you seen what I just did with my SLR? And we kind of just like, there was some deep discussion over that, being like, okay, is this feasible? How do you get it low enough? Do you need a macro lens? And all these things of like, oh, this is really cool, but like, oh, well, you'd have to use a longer lens to really get it to like, and then you're flattening your scene, and we're dealing with like foreshortening of things, but it seems like all of that has kind of gone to the wayside. If that's because I'm seeing like image quality that tells me it's in either an SLR or at least like a fixed lens, but like a consumer camera versus webcam stuff. Because we were having to sample our webcam feeds for like 20 seconds per frame so that we wouldn't get any little pixelization and crispiness to it. We were having to do a lot of work to make that webcam stuff look decent.
Mhm.
And then the SLRs have just swept the field away.
Yeah, DSLRs are huge now. Among generally among the older crowd. There's DSLR Rick filmers and there's phone Rick filmers. I kind of feel like webcams are like on the way out because everyone starts with a phone now.
It never even crossed my mind. That shows my age as well. That I'm like, oh, you can use your phone.
Yeah, but of course, the fact that phones are so popular now, it's introduced a number of like things that kind of annoy us, like people like digitally zooming in their shots on phones, and then it becomes like super crunchy.
We've
And
gone
then, and the phone.
yeah.
Everything being shot from slightly high angle on a phone because they can't get it low enough.
We've kind of gone full circle because we had a lot of these
we're getting
problems with
back
webcams, and then webcams are sort of dying out. Then you got a lot more people with DSLRs, and now we're getting phones, and how like they had a lot of the problems that like maybe like 2009 you would have seen. It's funny.
Exactly. Phones are kind of reintroducing problems that have kind of died out.
But like you'd be bumping your camera every time you take a capture a frame unless you have it like locked in with blue tack again. Like you're going back to our basic like blue tack and Lego frame like tripod almost of like that was an original solutions for things.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
But
Sorry, I'm generating everything. This is how I roll.
I'll just so I'm just notified our next guest Slurpy. But also you don't. No one actually has to leave. It's a bit weird. So I don't know if I explained this before, but basically, unlike in the other sort of live streams, we're not like asking people to leave like after their kind of like. It's basically we're just introducing people every half an hour, so they get their own kind of like little sort of segment to kind of like talk about their stuff, and then we'll kind of like. Once we've got everyone here, we'll then sort of do like a top 10. But yeah, so I think Slurpy is just about to join the chat now.
Everyone will be able to talk about the top 10,
Yeah.
But I just want to say one thing about shooting with a DSLR in brick filming is that macro filters are essential.
Oh, they have to be, yeah.
Yeah. So because you mentioned like, oh, you shooting on a long lens and flattening your image. Well, yeah, so we had no idea what to do yet. I like wide lenses. I like the wide lens look, so I'm always using macro filters.
Or macro lenses.
Yeah, I do have a macro lens as well. Yeah.
Probe lens.
No, I wish I had a probe lens. Oh yeah, actually.
That would be a good prize, honestly. A probe lens for whoever had DSLR, like just to upgrade them a bit more.
So like the land budget, but times 2, basically.
Yeah, maybe,
for one
maybe
prize.
20 years of Bricks in Motion contest will have the probe lens as the prize. we'd all pool our money together to offer it.
Just for one person.
But yeah, I want to introduce everybody to Slurpy, who's just joined us. Hello.
Hello, can everyone see and hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, hello.
Oh, happy days. How are you all doing?
Good, yeah. Not bad. I'm admiring your like Lego collection behind you there.
Yeah.
I was doing one show and I'm now in another now, so yeah, this is the this is the
you're
backdrop.
doing
No one's...
a Lego event in real life.
Oh no, I co-host a Lego podcast. It's I've been doing it now for the last 6 months, and it's more focused on kind of like Lego Star Wars and just Lego kind of in general and stuff like that. So
Okay.
And I just don't want people seeing the mess of the room. So it's an excuse.
Yeah, it's always I do envy like anyone who's got like an interesting background. Just by the way that I have my room set up, it always has like the least interesting like wall is behind me, but no, but yeah, I was I forgot that this is your second podcast of the night, isn't it? Because you were doing your podcast first, and then
I know, because we would do ours. It's called the Cool Hang Luke, and it's like we would do it every 2 weeks, but it's been every week now for the past about a month and a half.
Nice.
And no, I wasn't sure if I was gonna what the deal with it was tonight. I was like, I'll hop on if it's on, and then I seen your message, and it's like, oh cool, let's be cool to hop on to World of Brickfilms. So and the guys didn't roast me too much for leaving them. So
yeah.
I was listening to a bit of this just while I was waiting, and I heard a bit of slander against phones. No, I wouldn't say slander, but like it's. I agree. Like it's. I remember just all the digital zoom in effects and all that used to be looked down upon, and now it's come back again.
Yeah. So this is your comeback to Bricks in Motion. This THAC.
It's my comeback to animation in general. Yeah, it absolutely is.
Nice.
This is my first brick film in over 5 years.
Oh wow.
And it's, yeah, it's I don't know. I'm still kind of like I like how it turned out, but I mean, I just didn't have all of the equipment and stuff like that. I didn't have any. I had one really bad like kind of table lamp, and I was just using the light in the room and a shaky table. Honestly, this is God, if someone was a professional saw this, they'd be doing backflips. What is this guy doing? Like, yeah, he's wearing a white t-shirt and all. It was just... No, I wasn't ready at all. But...
I mean, in judging, we greatly value story concepts, and I think yours was super unique in the playlist.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, definitely. You did. Obviously, you did a good job to get to fourth place. Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, we really loved yours. It was. I think for like all the judges, we all placed it really highly, and I'm really happy to see it get to where it was. And yeah, it's just like a really interesting like concept, and yeah, just a really solid concept generally that like, and it's just like executed really well, and yeah, so it paid off really well. And yeah, it was nice to kind of like, sort of have you back sort of once again for you say it's your first one in 5 years. So was entering THAC, like, was that the big kind of thing that kind of made you kind of want to get back into brick filming, or is it something you've been wanting to do for like a while recently? Like, was it just like a good kind of like excuse to get back into it?
That, and I mean, like, I think like, because when I stopped making brick films, I was still making like short films and like other stop motions, but you still get those ideas like, oh, Lego Zombie Apocalypse 4, like what, let's make something here. And then a friend of mine did a charity stream the week before THAC for 24 hours, and I was like thinking, what else is 24 hours, and what is it that I can do in 24 hours? And I was like, oh, THAC, it's normally on this time of year. Praying it was maybe already finished, so it was like an excuse not to do it. And yeah, no, I seen it was on, and it's like, I tried to do it in 2014 and 2015. I don't remember what 2014's theme was. I think 2015 was A Mistaken Identity, and I think I got 6 hours into it, and I was like, I'm gonna just play PlayStation instead. And I was 16 at the time, and like normally you'd expect a 16-year-old to have more time than an adult, and no. But yeah, no, I just think I was kind of motivated to like just do something again with brick filming. It's been so long, and no, I loved it for years. And I mean, the last time I maybe did a Lego brick film was I was animating the project 2.5 years ago that never came to fruition. I kind of just gave up on it, and I was like, I'll never complete another brick film again. And I was like, then I seen THAC coming up. I was like, why not? Why not put myself through it? And honestly,
did you ever enter THAC before? Did you ever finish an entry before?
No, this is the first time I finished, and I'm that's why I was very surprised, because the general story to my entry, it started off as like kind of a joke. It wasn't anything super serious, and then like a few people are like, "Oh, I love what this meant," and I'm like, it was kind of a weird, sick joke. My brother came up with the idea for because for the no, with the theme fulfill, I had a different idea, and he was like, "Nah, that's crap." And,
I think I commented this on your video, but I like how seriously the characters take themselves in the film.
Oh no, I it's that comment. That's the thing my brother talked about too. It's like the way they're moving. It's like this. It's super serious, and it's you know, behind the scenes we're all laughing at it. Like we're all like, this is just goofy. And, I know, but I didn't think I was actually going to finish it because I kind of use like rudimentary software. I don't have I haven't used Dragon Frame since I was at university because I don't animate as much, and I don't have the student discount available. So I would have used a program called Anima Shooter Capture. They're like, that's like Temu Dragon Frame, and I shouldn't be slandering, but like it's so cheap. It's like the features aren't there, and but it was good enough for what I was doing. But the problem is exporting, and I got to the stage where it stopped like exporting the shot, and I'm like, this is a sign, like you're gonna give up for the third time, and it exported everything well.
Nice.
But yeah, it was the first time editing, and I still have After Effects and stuff like that, and it was like, I'm not too pleased with the output quality of it. It's pretty low. I think whatever happened, I was just playing at the switchboard with, I'll try to get it high quality, and it actually, I think, had the reverse effect. And I wasn't too happy with that, but you know, it's but I'm overall I'm very pleased I was able to finish THAC, because I was messaging Penta just before I think the week up. It's like, lay out the rules here for me. It's been a while. Like, what's happened to this community since I've gone? Like, what? And I think the thing that really took me by surprise is like, I still see every single year, because I'm subscribed to a lot of brick filmers, THAC 2021, THAC 2022 entry, but I was absolutely surprised at like how ballooned the entries were since like the pandemic. Like it just seemed to like double overnight, over a year, you know. And I was like,
pretty much.
I had this weird thought, this is going to hit 200. Something like an anniversary always brings boys to the yard, and it almost hit. You're probably happy it didn't hit 200.
But, that's what we keep saying is like, we're kind of afraid. We're afraid of the idea of it just going up and up and up every single year. We're kind of thinking, okay, like let's have a year where it just ticks down a little bit. Like, no, we don't want 200, 300 entries in the playlist, really.
And it was so cool too, because like, I don't know, like, I had this idea there's going to be a lot of people that are entering and, you know, partaking, and there's also like, I'm sure there was probably over 200 brick films because people submitted late, or I didn't get it finished, and I kind of took solace at like 4 a.m. battling demons in my head that like there's 200 plus other poor souls out there that are doing this, and no, it's kind of cool seeing, because I'm getting back into the Discord and all, even just lurking, and it's like, it's cool seeing everyone panic but also have a laugh and all about it, and I do have to say, like, thanks again, like, for that turnaround and judging, like, just under 3 weeks is like pretty phenomenal, I think, especially considering the high amount. And yeah, no, I was expecting like, you guys take months if you want, like.
There definitely was. It is
only the second time it's been 3 weeks, right? Usually guys do it in 2, which is insane.
Yeah, I think it was last year where we were kind of like, okay, it has to change, because like we got to over 160 last year, and we were like, I think it's got to a point where like we can't really promise to do it in 2 weeks. Like, you need to kind of push it back. Whereas 3 weeks is like, it's that little bit longer, but it's also still if you do it right, you know, with THAC being the first weekend of the year, it's like, it's still within that January. So it's kind of like, you know, January, by the end of January, you've had THAC, and then you get the results. It feels like it's really satisfying to have that.
Yeah.
And it is funny, it is crazy to think about, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but like the fact that like you used to have like say like 50, 60 entries, and it would take like a stupid amount of time to get the results.
Yeah, we were talking on talking before THAC, and you did mention that you could remember back to some of the older contests on Bricks in Motion, or it was like took a bizarre amount of time for the results to come out with like 30 something entries. But yeah, you just mentioned like people going crazy on the chat. We were saying during THAC, like it wouldn't be THAC without a couple of people absolutely crashing out in the chat at like 4 in the morning or something. And I was trying like I didn't want to get distracted by it because I was trying to make my own entry, but like sometimes I'd get pulled into it. But I feel like I was being very I wasn't putting much thought into like softening my responses because I just wanted to get back to my entry straight away. So I was just like, oh, stop being so hard on yourself, shut up.
Yeah, it was. I tried to like. I felt like I needed to with some of the stuff going on like at the time. I wanted to kind of try and get involved as a kind of like the host, to kind of be like, this is the official point, official kind of statement from the host is just keep going, don't or like whatever. And it was funny because like we had quite a long stream sort of before that, and then I was kind of feeling like I was probably ready to like I need to kind of like actually start checking the films coming out like on the in submissions, and then but as I was doing that I was like getting distracted because I was trying to like speak to these people on the chat who were kind of like and it's so fast as well, like it's like
it was crazy,
it's just like miles and miles of text like going like that, so by the time that you've kind of finished typing up like a kind of this sort of constructive kind of like response, it's like there's so many messages since
gone,
then.
yeah.
But yeah, no, it is crazy, and I think it is kind of part of the. It is part of the experience of THAC, just like how big and crazy it is. But actually, something I did want to mention that it is quite funny. So see your name that I kind of remember from, sort of from the past, because largely because you actually voice acted in loads of my films. In the
Ant-Man series.
The Ant-Man series, yeah. So like from episode 1, I think it's up to like episode 5. I think it was, yeah. So you'll see, your name's listed on most of the films. So it's probably a point where I have to say actually, because I'm now I'm still working on episode 7. It's been a long process, but I will reach out to you to do another voice. Yeah.
That's it. No, that's fine. It's funny because I see like casting calls, and it's like it'd be cool to pitch in, but then it's like the accent can be quite strong for some people. Like, I'm glad William took a chance on me years ago.
Castle Rock is one of the most popular voice actors. You might have heard Castle Rock in many of the THAC entries.
Yeah. And also the announcement video as well. He played Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh yeah.
I really liked Castle Rock's THAC entry actually. It didn't rank, but I liked that one.
Yeah, that was
that was a good one.
Yeah, that was nice.
Because this is the first time like I've watched so many of them, and it's like the quality is like insane to me. Not even just like, oh, let's look at all these. Are they using wide angles, up close probe lenses? No, it's like set design and stuff has like gotten so intricate now, and I don't know if that's like to do with like Lego's own evolving design language and brick filmers trying to not catch up, but go alongside it. But like,
I venture to say the Lego movie had a big thing to do with that.
I was like, guys just need to give out awards to like best set design for fact. Like it's like some of these things like these guys are building in 24 hours. Wink, wink. It's it's incredible. Like, I really enjoyed it, and yeah.
At the moment, we're judging the Bricks in Motion Awards for the films from 2024, and set design is one of the toughest categories. There's There's so many incredible ones, and I'm trying to narrow it down. I'm thinking, okay, well, there's no possible way that all of these can't make it. But then I'm like, oh no, I've got too many on my list. Like that's more than the number of nominees. But those are all the ones where I think, well, they're the definite ones, but I've got too many definites.
Then you gotta get into like the mock builder mindset. Like, what are they using? Any snot techniques? Any are they hiding the studs and all that? Like, can I ask a question to the judges? It's about what was the earliest entry? Like, you don't have to say what it was, but what time was it? Like, 5 hours into THAC we got our first entry, or?
Ooh, yeah, good question.
I do remember seeing a message fairly early, right? 6 to 8 hours in or so.
Yeah,
usually it's actually in the stream, because we did the THAC. I think Bert actually kind of like was like on sort of duty at that time when we were actually on stream, and he had to actually reject the first one, I think. And it was like it was during the stream, so it was like within the first 12 hours. It was probably, because it was towards the end of the stream, I'd say it was probably like around 11 to 12 hours into THAC.
I mean, that even sounds kind of late though, because usually there's an entry after like 6 or 7 hours, which is remarkably early. But usually the first one does come in around then. It's just like a 30-second entry each year, but or a disqualified entry.
It's funny though, because it is true that usually we have like a few kind of early on, but I remember kind of for the first like 14 hours I was like I kept refreshing it and I was like there's hardly any
are people entering?
Yeah, genuinely, it was like I was starting to kind of like have this sort of moment of doubt of like, usually we have more than this, right? Yeah. But yeah, no. So I think it was just that, like, I think on average, people were probably spending more time, even the ones that were kind of, I guess, sort of like quote unquote kind of early, were like more ambitious than they would have been in previous years. So it was kind of, as a result of it being, 20th anniversary, I think anyway. So yeah, it was interesting. It was quite kind of relatively late by the time we had our first entry.
There's going to be a year. You're gonna announce the theme and all that, and an hour later you're going to get like a 5-minute polished video. But there was one thing that like for my entry, the color mod was green and red.
Yeah.
I was, because my minifigure used a teal torso, and I'm like, right, for a lot of people that's green, but for an equal amount of people that's blue, and it's like, I don't want to email the mods and be like, come on, what way we swinging here? But oh my days, no, it was good crack too. I had my brothers help me build some of the walls too, and that's why some of them are maybe a bit. They wouldn't set design anyway, but
yeah, well, it's interesting when it comes to like those kind of like more sort of like where it's sort of harder to tell whether or not like a certain sort of shade is like one color or the other. I was looking at like, because I remember I was looking at the different colors, and I try and, when it comes to the sort of mods, I try and like avoid using ones like, not using the exact same two colors from like from like last year or something. And then I was like, we haven't used green as much, and I kind of remembered why there were certain colors why we just that were like, that one, and it was because green is one of those ones where it's like there are so many kind of like shades that are like, is this green or is this blue? But when it comes to that kind of thing, even if it's not like on the list of like Bricklink ones, if it's kind of like arguable enough that it's sort of, it looks kind of green, I'd be willing to kind of just say, give it a benefit of the doubt and say
we can see that this person was clearly intending this as the correct mod element.
Yeah.
I guess we never considered like accessibility issues in the mod element selection,
Well, there's the letter
Like-
mod.
with colorblindness being a factor,
Yeah, there's the letter mod.
and then I guess dyslexia too.
Well, I don't think dyslexia would affect just one
Yeah.
letter, right?
Like shape mod.
Imagine
I
if you had to have
suppose
a
not,
certain
unless you
sound
had it upside
effect in
down.
every shot. Air horn.
Every single time you have to, yeah, that might
Yeah,
that
the
would
new
be
mod element is going to
destructive.
be a sound effect next to
Yeah, every- every
Uh,
transition has a whip crack.
Well, the idea of a sound effect mod was actually proposed for the first Brawl, but everybody responded by saying that doesn't make any sense because you could just
Oh
you could
yeah.
just have a film already made
Back in.
and just drop the sound effect in the timeline.
The
That
real
makes sense.
the real trick is to just like have, if you have like one sound effect that's kind of like you change the speed and time to be the lengths of the entire timeline. So it's just this really kind of like droning, kind of like slowed down version of that sound throughout the entire entry.
Yeah,
I would not
Very
enter.
music.
very Inception vibes.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, I just messaged Super Duck, who is like our next guest, so he should be on soon. Yeah, Slurpy, just as a reminder, I'm probably gonna end up saying this to every guest, that when a new guest comes on, that doesn't mean that you have to leave. We're just like, we're kind of like slowly like adding on like more and more guests.
yeah.
The Avengers are assembling.
Yeah. So
Oh, no,
Slipper, I had a
understandable, yeah.
question.
sorry.
Oh yes, sorry.
Oh, I was gonna, I have your film open in front of me, and I've been scrubbing through it as we're talking, and I have one single question. I think the teal brick. Did you cut a hole in it for the head to fit through, or am I crazy?
The
Of, like-
actual that's an actual Lego piece, that torso. That's what you're on about.
Oh, it actually is.
Yeah. No, that's
That's
how
too
ridiculous
cool.
that piece is. Like, they've
Oh,
been
wow, you're
making
right,
that for a while. But
I've never seen that piece
think it's
before. I was
been-
like, this is insane looking.
no, that's why like
That's
it seems to only
awesome.
be relegated to pick a brick or whatever. What's it? Build a minifig. Like they
Oh yeah,
They don't want the-
yeah, build a
they
minifig
don't-
in the Lego store.
they don't want the masses be like accidentally buying these monstrosities. But by the way, do you know what's the biggest problem I have with that brick? So you know how the minifigure torso is angled, and the way their arm is.
Yeah.
The arm movement on that tail brick, and it goes for all of them, because it's straight.
Oh.
The arm is very, very stiff. It's quite strange moving it, and that's why I didn't really like having him move his arms too much, because I was kind of getting frustrated. Like, it's just something moving smooth, and I don't want to accidentally, because it is so easy just to maybe move it and it pops out, and it's like,
I
But-
never
oh,
thought
wow.
about that. I don't think your film suffered because of that.
No, I didn't notice that. That's for sure.
I say it was
That's
a pain
cool.
in the ass to move his legs because it's completely restricted below like I think a couple of plates. But
Yeah.
uh,
I can see he kept his feet out of frame a lot. I'm guessing that was trying to hide whatever you were having to do to make him at least move somewhat controllably.
Yeah. because
That makes sense.
I got into a bad habit, and it's still there, where I don't really animate on base plates, and this goes for like even puppets or action figures. I would do it on like clay, so it's like, all right, I'll just no feet shots.
Yeah.
There was obviously a few shots with him on studs, but it just means I can waddle them and kind of get a bit more movement and stuff like that. But
I mean, I think that's good advice
Tarantino's
generally.
screaming right now.
For sure.
But-
Well, yeah, it's a great point here. Like, I don't think I ever saw someone doing like what I would describe as like an untethered walk cycle, like 20 years ago. I don't think we.
Yeah.
I think everyone was always trying to keep to the studs, and it meant that like you'd have your run cycle and your walk cycle, and then that's pretty much it. You couldn't really be that flexible. But if you're dealing with like if you're dirtying your frame and covering your feet, or is framing them out almost, and just you have so much more control of like how much that fig can actually move in terms of like distance, and like you don't have to try and like land back on a stud. You can literally just land wherever you want to if someone's jumping or even walking or like wobbling. That's super cool.
And also as well,
it is a piece of advice we give that advice on here to frame it so you can't see the feet, so you can just totally free the tack underneath them.
it's
definitely.
I think that's like one of the things that we often say with THAC, like advice, is that like, you know, if you can get away with not having to show much like walk cycle, just generally, it's like it's, you know, a benefit for you. But actually, I believe that Super Duck is actually on the chat now.
Hello.
I don't know if we.
Hello.
Hello.
Good sir.
Hi. Yeah. So you go by, I think, Super Duck and also Sam Studios. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Nice. Yeah. So welcome. And congratulations on third place with the horse dealer. I was really glad to see that. Played so highly. It was a great entry, and obviously we were probably, I mean, you know, with the amount of kind of like something that we talked about a lot. Actually, I remember when we were kind of watching for the first time. You know, a few of us were like watched a kind of like, you know, we watched like the playlist together, and we were commenting on how motivated and kind of like, you know, a lot of the shot compositions were like, it really felt as though they were really kind of considered, like the way in which like the characters were positioned, and like on a you know, like the cinematography side of things, it was really strong, and it's just like a really well kind of like told, well put together. Voice acting is great. Like it's a really solid entry, and I was really glad to see it place in third. So congratulations.
The blocking and the staging in that film are incredible. Like, I have a lot to learn from that. I was watching it and I was like, man, this is crazy. Like, I'm taking notes. I have to lay my ensembles out like this.
You must have been influenced by like Kurosawa films, or, you know, really good stuff.
Oh wow, yeah, thank you.
Would that be right? Like, would you have been looking to, you know, classic films?
Yes, I was. I don't know. I watched this like Western a few months ago called like The Big Country. It's like a William Wyler movie, and I was really just like inspired by its overall look and blocking of the film. I was really just like, I don't know, really inspired me to do what I needed to do.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, is there anything that you do to get the focus really deep?
I just crank up that f-stop. That's really just f like 22.
I like deep focus, but I just sometimes feel like I hit the upper limit with using the DSLR. It's like, oh, I'd like to get it even deeper, but I just can't. So.
Yeah, for most of the film, I use like it's like a 10 to 22 millimeter lens, which helps out a lot with the deep focus.
Right, that makes sense. So, yeah, usually I'm definitely not shooting on a lens as wide as that. And yeah, you can see the wide. I mean, I love the wide frame as well, the widescreen aspect ratio and wide lens.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you got much distortion on the edges either, which is interesting.
Yeah, I roughly used about, I think it was like mainly like 14 to 17 millimeters I use in the film.
Nice.
I mean, that's practically fisheye, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you can hide that a lot when you use the like CinemaScope
Definitely.
aspect ratio. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was in like, what was it, 1.85, it would be just pretty distorted.
Yeah.
I was really impressed by like
interesting insight.
How sort of close you could get to like the, you know, with some of the shots. Like a real standout I think is the shot with the knife when he's cutting the rope. Like that was a real kind of standout, especially because like, you know, you said like that sort of depth of field, like it's so that you know, the entire kind of background is completely kind of like out of focus, and it's just like, you know, it's him cutting it and everything, and it's just like one of those things which you can really tell. It's like it really showcases what you can do with, you know, DSLRs and lenses and
Oh, it's so much fun.
yeah.
I like the feel, like the vibes you got in the town. It seems like it's a really just awkward place to live. And I like all the little interactions between all the little characters in there too.
Yeah.
I like that
really-
the sun is kind of like hiding behind the bush in the first part. You can
There's so
kind of
much
just see
to
him
this
lurking
one.
back
Like,
there.
it's 3 minutes long. Like, you know, it would be a good brick film even if it wasn't THAC.
Mm.
I got a little, I guess, ambitious with the script, and I had to, when filming it, most of it's on 3s.
That's interesting.
That's
Good idea for THAC, I suppose.
Yeah, I think
for sure.
I think come to think of it, I think that there was a lot of kind of very kind of like exaggerated kind of movements at certain points, which kind of really lends itself well to that kind of like cartoony kind of style. So like, yeah, I can sort of see that in those kind of parts you were, I guess, animating in 3s then. But yeah, like it's interesting. I think, yeah, definitely it really worked well, and it kind of flowed naturally. So I'm assuming with the film, you did you kind of like switch between 3s and 2s?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That was, I would say, it was mainly a blend of 2s and 3s. Sometimes 4s, but I don't really want to talk about those shots.
That actually does.
How long?
Yeah.
How long have you been animating for?
Since I was about, I think, what was I, like 7 years old, probably.
Yeah,
Wow.
because you know, like, there's only a couple of videos on the channel, but I was kind of thinking like there has to be more than this. Like, you couldn't have just shown up out of nowhere with a video this good.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't start posting until like my first doc entry back in 2023.
Yeah, because like, was that like, so had you not like posted anything like online at all before that? Is there like a secret like YouTube channel where you shared other stuff, or is it completely just sort of like not stuff you sort of shared?
Yeah, I've never really, I don't know, shared my stuff before. I just have it on like hard drives and stuff. But yeah, that was my first channel I ever created.
That's interesting.
Nice.
Yeah, maybe there's some more great original brick filmers out there, but they're just gatekeeping their work. They have so much artistic integrity that they won't even share the videos. I don't want any YouTube views.
It's interesting because I think so. Were you kind of like aware of like the sort of brick filming community, and like, were you watching other like brick films? You know, like years before. Like if you were saying that you started when you were 7, like.
Oh yes, yes, I got into it around that age, and I don't know, I constantly watched them like throughout, I guess, my childhood and to this day. I was always a big fan. I don't remember if I watched much like stuff from Bricks in Motion back as a kid, but it was mainly like, say, like Forest Fire videos or Brotherhood workshops. I watched a lot.
Nice.
Kind of funny to even hear that, like, oh yeah, I was watching, as a kid watching Brotherhood Workshop, because to me that's like too new to be what people would have been watching as a kid, but by now it's like, oh yeah, that's going back over 10 years now, so that actually does make sense.
Yeah, because when it was like Forest Fire first, like probably like not Forest Fire, Brotherhood Workshop, was that like
Brotherhood Workshop
2012?
showed up around
Like
2012, yeah.
yeah.
think so.
Yeah, with Lord of the Rings stuff would have
Yeah,
popped up
yeah.
around then.
Yeah, when the Lord of the Rings official Lego sets came out, yeah.
Because I definitely kind of think like that's definitely one of those channels where like they were already really kind of well established by the time that I was kind of like first watching their kind of videos. But yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, because I think I would have watched the Justin Bieber like video they did, like, which was like one of the earlier ones.
What?
Yeah, isn't it? Was it for the workshop
Gollum.
that did? Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Precious,
Oh,
precious,
yeah, I
precious.
remember
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
thinking of Hamster Productions' Gollum does Gangnam Style.
Yeah. Which, funny enough, I think I remember
Another
watching that at the
classic.
same time. Yeah. I think I remarked that I think I mentioned that when we were talking to House Seduction on the podcast,
Yeah.
that like that was, I think, probably the first one I saw, because I think it would have been like recommended when when it would like see Precious like it would be on the yeah. And I think it was when I was like first like on YouTube, like watching stuff on YouTube. Gangnam Style was still like relatively recent enough for it to be like, you know, memed. But yeah.
I was so new to brick filming when I was only be at it for 2 years when Brotherhood Workshop kind of blew up. But I remember finding it really cool that they used clay, but they were using rocks, branches, shrubs,
Yeah.
and I thought that was like really unique for a brick film. And it led to like a lot of people, myself included, at one stage, kind of like, oh, I'm gonna go out to the garden and find whatever debris lying out there, tin shades, whatever. And no, it was, yeah, it's cool to see them still around too.
Definitely.
Yeah, Brotherhood Workshop's still doing stuff for the Lego group. There was a really good Disney princess, like 5-minute animation with a castle just released there at the end of the year by Brotherhood Workshop. Really impressive, with like skeleton armies and stuff. Which, of course, was another one of those videos where it's like, oh, we got to find out who made this. Oh, it's Brotherhood Workshop. Of course it was.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know, like Super Duck, like when I watched your entry, it was like the thing that kind of just stuck out was there's too many shots here. In a good way, it's like, how did he get all of this? Like there's so much, and I like that's a thing I've noticed a lot since kind of, I wouldn't say coming back, but it's like the blending of different frame rates, with 2s and 3s and stuff, and it's really yeah, it was really unique too.
It was,
But it looked really good. That's the thing. Like,
I find it interesting too with how many, just how large the cast was, and especially with having that many background characters. I would be tempted to try to get some movement in there through a lot of it. But I'm just noticing now for the first time that they pretty much don't ever move. And I've watched this film so many times and I hadn't even realized that they didn't move. So very economical there.
yeah, I don't know. I tried to make the compositions pretty unique so you wouldn't notice they don't really move. Like, if I had, I don't know, more time with the film, I would love to make them move around different positions, but I had to keep focus on the main characters.
Oh, for
Well,
sure.
the compositions were great, and yeah, I would hate to have to do background crowds for THAC. That's just no, never.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things of, you know, being economical with THAC, and I know focusing on the things that really matter. And I think it's interesting because the shot composition and actual sort of blocking and framing of everything was so kind of on point. It kind of, you don't really pay attention to the fact they're not moving. And also in the context of the film, it kind of makes sense that they're kind of just like, they're just sort of, you know, observing everything going on. So yeah, like it absolutely kind of works, and it's kind of definitely considering what you should be focusing on and what you shouldn't be focusing on when it comes to your time with THAC. So yeah, that's and yeah, it's interesting. Actually, you know, talking about, I guess, going on like you know, combining 2s and 3s when it comes to animation. I think it's interesting because there are, you know, a lot of people nowadays who are experimenting, I think, a lot with that kind of changing say 2s and 3s and stuff. But I think it's knowing when to do that, and also working out like how important every individual frame is in those kind of, especially when you're going to lower frame rates. I think it's I think there is this kind of perception. I remember definitely having this perception when I was like younger, of like, well, if there's less frames, then it's easier because you can just make things quicker or whatever. But actually, in a lot of ways, it can be harder because every frame really matters. Getting it to actually, and also like making things move in such a way where, it still is like animated well, I guess, it's like, it really does, like those individual frames really end up mattering a lot.
It has become a massive thing, doing like 2s and 3s and occasionally 1s and camera on 1s, especially since the Lego Movie and since Spider-Verse like really sort of blew that up among like way wider audiences than Brickfilming would have. But I kind of want to ask Ladon, do you ever remember anyone talking about that in the old days? Like, or
the thing that I was thinking now is like we were doing 15 FPS because that was how we all decided was the best way to approach doing a smooth enough animation that looked good, but also not dealing with 24 and having to shoot on 2s. Because I feel like there was an impression that we had gotten that as a culture in Brickfilming that we were like, well, 12 is too jumpy, and 24 is too much to do. So we do 15. That's the smoothest we could get without going too high. But it was making me think now. I'm like, what? When you're shooting 2s and 3s and 4s, you're doing it when you're shooting. You're not going through and reassigning frame rates to different shots. You're just like doing it like you would do in a studio. You're actually shooting like just double capturing whatever else. Which is funny because like I think in that era we were still stuck on. We didn't really have frame rate control when we were doing our editing as much. Like we didn't really consider like, oh well, I'll slow this down. It was definitely something we were locked into. It's like, cool, I'm gonna do this film on 15.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it 24, shooting on 2s, yes. I don't think anyone discussed shooting on 3s. I think that would be considered cheating. Where I'm like, oh no, that's actually it's not. But it's like that would be like, oh, that's too far. It's like, well, why would you just shoot 8 FPS the entire time? But recently, I was working on a project that needed to look like stop motion, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it on 2s. It'd be great. And I did it on 2s, and luckily it was in 3D, so I could re-render it and chop it up a bit. But it was like 2s wasn't even bad enough. I was like, I had to go on 3s in order for it to even feel like it was done by hand. To have like a stop motion feel to it. It didn't even feel like it was really. It didn't feel not janky. It didn't feel handmade enough on 2s. It had to be 3s. So now I'm like 3s are totally fine.
That's the way I remember it. When I started, it did feel like the conventional wisdom was like everyone uses 15, everyone should use 15, and like, but 12 is too janky looking. But now now most of us use 12 primarily, and just because we have a bit more, we have more like logic, more principles to the animation. 12 looks smoother now. I often feel sometimes you still see people saying like, oh, anything below 15 is too choppy, too janky, and I'm just kind of thinking to myself, I'd bet anything that you've seen countless brick films that are 12, countless professional stop motions that are 12, and you just assume they're 15 or higher. You just assume they're 15 or 24 because they look smooth.
Yeah,
I'd also be wary of like.
Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
I was just thinking like shooting on 12. Yeah, shooting on 2s versus actually playback at 12 is totally different too. So like if you're shooting on 2s and you're playing back at 24, that it's actually mathematically it's the exact same, but the video player treats it differently. So if you're shooting at 12 FPS and playing back at 12 FPS, you are seeing one frame you're seeing 12 FPS happening. But when you're doing 24 on 2s, you have to realize that that there is compression involved, and the compression algorithms will be smoothing it out for you, even slightly, even tiny little bits. You'll be actually seeing changes between frames occasionally that will help you, even if there's no motion blur applied, that kind of thing. It still will actually feel smoother, even though it's the exact same thing. Which is it's kind of just like a bit of a brain teaser there of how it could be different. But I've seen it and I've tried it, and it actually does look different, which is of interest.
Also,
I think camera moves on ones, then it masks it even more.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Or it might show it off by accident if you go the wrong way.
I actually stumbled upon a bit of a complication when animating a camera on ones, actually, when characters were running very sort of like they're very fast motion, like running really fast, and animating them on twos, but then the camera moving on ones. It has this weird effect, like because they're effectively they're not moving at the pace the camera is, and it's something which I want to kind of explore more, because if you look on the behind the scenes of the Spider-Verse, what they actually do with where like Miles Morales is sort of flying like in the air, and he's animated,
locked in with the camera.
Yeah, he's like locked into the camera, even though he's not moving in every frame. And that's something which, like, when it comes to obviously doing that in a physical stop motion sort of setting is a bit harder, but it's something I want to kind of experiment more with, and actually perhaps like if you've got characters running and the camera's moving, maybe you need to actually just like have a rig and not like just attach them to the base plate, so that you can actually move them.
In 3D they can advance the position every frame, but advance the pose every 2 frames.
Yeah,
exactly. Definitely helps a lot with that.
Yeah, really, really difficult in stop motion, though.
You don't really notice it as much when it's smaller movements. Like, I've done it a few times where the character's walking, and it's not super noticeable. But yeah, certainly if they're running, or if you're filming some kind of vehicle that you wanted on twos for some reason, it would definitely show.
It's one of those points where actually animating a camera on twos, I would definitely not recommend this generally, but I ended up, my solution for this shot that I'd done, because otherwise it was fine, I ended up actually deleting half the frames and effectively making it like animated on twos as a camera, and because it's fast motion, actually kind of you don't really notice it too much. But that's
I feel like you don't notice it if the camera's moving really rapidly. You don't really notice it on twos.
But definitely something I want to experiment more with, and I really want to see how it would kind of work out. Because I'm sure that is something which they've had to do with like big productions. Like I'm sure like maybe Ardon's done something like that when it comes to animating a camera. Because like generally speaking, do think actually Germany isn't like Western Grommet animated in twos, or
yeah the new Wallace and Gromit had loads of great fancy motion control camera shots.
Yeah
super jealous.
It's probably also worth noting that like with all this talk about frame rates, like we're talking about 1s, 2s, and 3s and not variable frame rates. We're all assuming this is base 24, which I think
yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that it's difficult to wrap your head around when you're first encountering these ideas, and it frustrates us to no end on the server when there's people who, especially if they don't understand that every frame rate you're using, it has to divide into the frame rate that you're going to render the final project as. Because sometimes we see people who they seem to. It's like they think that they're being super interesting and creative by choosing a different frame rate for every shot. And they're like, oh, the last shot was 9 FPS and this shot's 14 FPS. And we're like, I'm going to kill you.
I've seen a few brick films where they would list the frame rates and it's like frame rate 14 to 17. And Robert, I don't know if you've cracked some sort of mathematical code, but that doesn't play back.
You're just missing frames. Like you lost them in your life there.
Dropping frames. Yeah.
And they won't even know which ones they are.
See, there's a box called frame interpolation, and if you just check that, it makes everything better, right?
Oh, no.
That's I was super
And while you're at it,
debating
just
because
because it out too.
like for the longest time, like I kind of got like locked into doing 12 FPS just straight, like shooting it like that and exporting it as sometimes 12 but like 24, and you do notice the difference between shooting on single 12s and then on 2s. I think the grain, you kind of notice like the noise
Yeah.
profile.
Definitely, yeah.
But I was like, I'll shoot my FAC entry on 2s, and it's like, nah, I don't have time to wait an extra.
Yeah.
Like,
Same
because
here,
I
yeah.
would sometimes do like a second or 2 second exposure, and it's like, this is eating into time. And I was like super debating for my next project to do 15 FPS because it's basically 12 but a little extra elbow work. But 24, I really like the camera movements on 2s, and you're afforded that leeway of maybe going on 1s for some movements, and it's like I don't want to be like halfway into the production and it's like this would have looked better on 24 on 2s and singles, but
It's also important to consider that 15 is just 2s on 30 FPS, which is 30 FPS is your NTSC default for video for TV. So you would technically, if you did a project at 30 and you were shooting on 2s for most of it at 15, you'd end up doing like an extra 6 frames per second, which would be a pain. Yeah, that's a
but
bigger
still
problem.
works.
Once you're going to 1s, you're like, oh yeah, but yeah, and if you're
I
only
think
doing
that's why
1s
we're
occasionally,
still-
not that bad.
Yeah, I think that's why we're still fine with 15 too. And you can still do 1s, 2s, and 3s easily.
I think that's the
Would
thing,
a lot
isn't
of
it?
you
Yeah.
guys do 15s on 1s? Would that be is that still quite the common thing to do? Like,
Yeah, 15 is still common, yeah.
On ones, yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's kind of.
If I were ever
Yeah.
to move to 15, it would be 30 on 2s. But I'm quite happy with 24 on 2s.
But actually, yeah, commenting on what you were saying, Slurpy, about the difference between 24 on 2s and using 12, it's definitely the grain factor is a big thing, because especially if one of the things I always sort of recommend people do, well, I mean, I always would at least anyways, is when you're like coming to an end of a shot, have like an extra sort of frame of just sort of no movement, and
Oh yeah.
effectively if you're doing 24 on 2s, you're doing that anyway, even without like sort of going into an effort of adding an extra frame. So it means that like if you want to just hold on to like a shot for like 6 frames, you can just like copy and paste those like 2 frames 3 times. And
I mean, I usually take a couple of frames and loop loop more than 2 just to loop the grain.
And I think that
yeah, certainly if I need to save time, I do have Dragon Frame set at 12 FPS rather than having it set at 24 FPS. Like for this THAC, all my shots were just shot at 12.
I do
The
find
other thing to note, which is kind of weird.
I one thing I need to probably do, and perhaps I need to kind of set my Dragon Frame to like automatically do like 2 frames, because what I find I end up doing is I keep forgetting to that it's on 24, and I will accidentally like move like a minifigure before taking a second frame, and then there'll be like, it happened a couple of times in Brawl actually, where like there's like a couple of frames where is like it's animated on ones by mistake for like 1 frame.
Oh god.
Oh yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
But I have to go back and reshoot them because I can't accept it.
And that's a case of like if you just like copy and paste like an image so that's technically on 2s. Most people aren't going to notice, but I can tell like, oh, you can see that the frame, the grain kind of, it's there on 2 of those frames.
Because I had that same mistake, because I'm back into the old, it's not good, but like doing tests again, the forever loop of just never doing anything. But I decided to do 24 on 2s, but mix it up 1s. But it was the same thing. I'd like take a photo, take a photo, and it's like, no, I was supposed to hold that for 2 frames. And I put it back and it's like, this looks not great, but I'm like, it's a learning curve too. Also,
Yeah.
that's why I might get Dragon Frame, because the software I use, if you lock it in at like 24 frames per second playback, it will like jump the playback to like 27, or maybe drop down to 21, and it's like not consistent. So when you when I export the frames into Premiere Pro, it's like, oh, this does not look how it did when I was shooting it live.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah,
That's
really
great. Yeah,
I
I don't like that.
I had this weird thing when what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, I remember actually going back to like maybe like 2015 when I was like when I first started doing 12 FPS, because I think the first time when I was very first doing brick films, I think I started off at like 6 frames per second, which effectively is that would that be, I guess that'd be on 4s if we're going to treat it that way. Is that right? Yeah. Like I kind of felt like, you know, the way I was viewing it back then was like, oh, I'm going to slowly progress to 12 FPS, and then I'm going to get to 15. But then I kind of got to 12, and I was like, actually, this works. Like, I don't feel like I need to, you know, I can do everything I need to do, and it looks close enough to 15. But I remember there being this perception, and, you know, not with like everyone in the brick film community, but there was this perception I felt as though like that I kind of heard that was that like 12 was not as good as 15. And there was you know there were some people that kind of treated like, you know, like, oh yeah, 12 is the bare minimum that you can do for it to be acceptable.
It's too choppy. It's It's not professional. Yeah.
And then it kind of
you
like,
know who?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Who changed my mind on that? This guy was not. He never made any long length brick films, but I will always remember him because he would always do tests that was phenomenal. It was a guy called I assume Mr. Mingle Productions.
Oh yeah, Mr. Mingle, yeah.
And his stuff, and I'm ashamed to say this, but we're talking 8 or 9 years ago, I used to like go frame by frame, like how did he do that? And it was just all 12. Now he would do 2s, but it was, you know, holding each one for 2, and I was like, this guy's he's cracked the code. And I remember looking at the post history, like him debating 12 FPS looks better than 15, and everyone's saying 12's too choppy. And it's like,
Mr. Mingle. Yeah, even though he never actually made a full brick film, he only made tests, but he was really influential in the Bricks Motion community. Like, there's loads of us who remember seeing his stuff and we're like, oh, that changed the game. Like, that changed how we see animation.
I definitely...
He was using supports and all too. Like, I remember him being like the first one to like use, not first, but like a lot of dynamic movement, using the helping hand, and also maybe not not masking anything either as well, but your tests.
I find
just because they were just tests,
I find it. I remember thinking, because I remember, God, it shows you how long we've been doing this podcast. But I remember like when we were first doing the podcast and we mentioned him, maybe even like the Fall on Creatures episode, like in like 2018, we were saying about like how like we really want to see Mr. Mingle make a full film. But it's interesting because what I will say about the whole thing of like the 12 FPS kind of debate is that over the years I felt more and more vindicated. Just the idea that like I was very much on the defense of like, I mean, maybe not verbally, I don't know if I said it too much, but like I was very much like of the belief that like 12 FPS is right. This is where I want to be, and this is where I'm going to stay doing. And like over the years, it's really shifted to like everyone's like, 12 FPS or like 24 and 2s. This is the way to go. And I'm like, yeah, I held on to that. I didn't give in to 15.
Sully in now.
Yeah.
I think there also was a technological issue that we were running into early on. So it was, when I started brick filming, it was, I don't even remember. It would have been like maybe 2003-ish. It was before YouTube. So we were dealing with, we were using Real Media Player, which is horrible for archival purposes because there's no player that'll actually play it properly now, I'm guessing, or it's harder to track down. But because Real Media Player was really good at converting Japanese anime shows, there was a lot of noise reduction there too. So as you were dialing in your settings for exporting your brick film on Real Media Player, you'd be dealing with like, cool, I can get my file size this like to like 10 megabytes for a film or whatever it is, because we were all using dial-up internet and whatever else, we were restricted for upload and download speeds. But it was also a frame rate issue of like, okay, 15 is probably the maximum we can do that won't jack up our file size, because even if you were shooting 2s, if you exported that at 24 FPS, your file size would actually double. So we were also limited in how big we could even make a file to begin with, to even upload, to download, to share it, to even like submit to contests, or even like post online for the directory, that kind of thing, which I think definitely impacted anyone really wanting to go bigger. I feel like honestly the first one I can remember that was QuickTime file was Jay Silver's Star Wars trailer. And I was like, oh cool, we're allowed to do that now. We're allowed to use QuickTime. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a big file though.
We are kind of spoiled now that we don't have to worry about file size.
Yeah. It was like 20 megabytes. It's like an hour-long download. That was nuts.
But yeah, before we get too carried away, do you want to introduce Sully, who's just joined us, second place winner of THAC 2025, with the ordination. That is the right name. That is right, isn't it? Yeah. First off, congratulations for coming second place. It was an amazing entry. And yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Really nice Lego collection in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Looks well sorted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
That makes sense though. All the nice sets in the
we can swap. You can take my empty boxes and I'll take your shelves.
Have you managed to like sort everything out since THAC? Is it like in a good state now? Like
Yeah, it's way better. Like I think it was like a week before THAC, my basement flooded, so like I had to redo everything. But we were able to get it back in place. Like it was like Friday night. I was like still putting stuff back where it went. But so it's like the best it's ever been now.
Nice.
And the mess during THAC was like nothing. Like it was the cleanest I've ever been during a contest. Like after Brawl, it's like a mess for like a month, and then usually during THAC it gets pretty awful. But like this time there was like nothing. I had like I think 2 sets in total, and like I was just kind of like put stuff away as I went. So it was really easy to clean up this year. So I'm grateful.
Nice.
Yeah,
because we do see people in the Discord saying like, "Oh, I've still got a big mess after THAC on the table."
I would say that I guess comparatively to Brawl, I probably have actually more experience with like making bigger films for Brawl. That because you've got like a week's worth of just like mess. It is a lot more intense, or it can be more intense than THAC. So I could imagine, like by comparison, because it's all concentrated onto one day, it's kind of the potential for it to be as bad is probably not it's probably not gonna it might not be as bad, but actually I would say it's speaking of Brawl and I guess other brick films. You've actually been really on a streak recently with the contests, coming third place in Brawl with Paranoia on the Second Avenue, and then winning, coming first place in with Falling Out of Love in the Musical World contest, and then now obviously coming second place, the ordination. So you've got a third, second, and first place entry into those 3.
Yeah, I never really thought that would happen. So I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, but yeah, like Stanley Kubrick is first and you're second, and in Brawl last year you were second and third.
Yeah.
Saying
And then the
orders.
brawl before that, I think
Yeah,
they were
we've been,
right
like,
next to each other.
Yeah, me and well, I think me and Graham and Stanley have always been, I think in our
We've
first
always been
brawl,
right,
yeah,
right
we were
beside
like,
each other.
yeah, yeah, I think like
Wow.
our first year it was like 11th, 12th, and 13th, I think we were all together, and then I think the next year we weren't all together, but then this past year we were like the top three, and then me and Stanley again. So yeah, it's cool. I like, I'm in good company.
Yeah, I'm just looking that up now. You're right. Yeah, the first brawl, yeah, 11th, 12th, and 13th, all three.
That is funny.
Well, it's maybe it's a good thing that Aeronoma didn't enter THAC this year, or else the
Yeah.
results will be getting a bit repetitive.
Yeah, it's yeah, no, it's crazy how that kind of works out. But no, it's interesting. I think I've been sort of thinking about this a lot recently, actually. That like we definitely got kind of, I think the recent sort of THAC and brawls we've seen kind of some kind of, you know, sort of newer names that have kind of like well, I guess
Become,
names that
like core members.
yeah. I get like you like Aero Nomad and you know, there's got a few other people who have kind of like, you know, they've become quite sort of, well, yeah, you know, they're your entries into like THAC and Brawl and the, you know, the contests have really kind of like yeah, it's interesting seeing that kind of take shape, and also kind of, you know, multiple years placing highly as well. So yeah, I guess
There's really something to the Bricks and Motions contest, though. Like I can't quite put words to it, but there's definitely something there that is really special and like keeps me coming back. Because like when I think about it, I mean, it's just you make an entry in a day or a week, and on paper there's not that much to it, but there's definitely something there.
Yeah.
They have an aura.
Yeah.
Which I'm,
It's the last
you know,
minute
like,
stress that I love.
Yeah. Crunch time.
I'm quite pleased that they have managed to hold on to that sort of vibe. They haven't been like, yeah, Bricks and Motion contests still feel like Bricks and Motion contests to me. Even though there's so many more entries, it still manages to be, yeah, a playlist of Bricks and Motion contest type entries.
Yeah, so actually, I was looking at your wiki page, and I see that you've on here it says that you've been you started brick filming around 2021. Do you have any kind of do you have like a hard drive of like unreleased brick films as well, or when did you start kind of getting into it? Like,
Yeah. I sort of I tried to find, I think it was back like around Christmas. I actually I found, I think the oldest one that I would have would be like from 2013, I think. I think all the others, 'cause I think I started like probably in 2000, like maybe 8, I think. But I don't know where those would be. Those would be like on an old like VHS tape or something. But yeah, I found a 2013 one. I've thought about like putting them on YouTube like as unlisted videos. I don't even know if I want to do that. They're not very good. But yeah, I think that's probably the oldest one. But I don't have many. I don't know where they were on like an old family computer, and I have no idea. But I've tried to find some. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right. I mean, I think we probably spoke about this on the Brawl results stream.
Yeah.
And like the fact that you were into mock building outside of brick filming, which of course shows in the sets, you know, your recent contest winning entries. So, were the sets for this one built within the 24 hours?
Yeah, they were all. I think the only thing, I've had the glass the stained glass windows. There's like that, like just one little section of it I've had built, like for quite a few months because I wanted to use that for a while. But then when the contest was announced, I switched out the colors in it so there would be red and green touching. Because I think it was just like, I think like clear. I think it was just clear, like cheese slopes in there. So I switched out the colors. But yeah, that was it. Everything else was in 24 hours. And there's really only like one like big set, and then everything else is like tiny. Like I think it fits on like a 16 by 16 plate, like everything else except for the main like part of the church. So everything was like really quick and like pretty much just like a single like wall and then maybe like a table. So very quick.
Yeah, watching through the like watching the film again, kind of on mute as we speak. It's really sort of striking to me how it's just very cleverly shot. Like you get this sense of scope from the film that clearly the sets themselves I imagine are pretty small. But like there's that initial shot of the wide shot where that opening shot with you see like the pews and the stairs and all that kind of stuff, and that's quite there's quite an involved set. But then the rest of it you've got these kind of like sort of deep kind of focus and quite sort of relatively close up or some very kind of close up shots, and it's just like very kind of well considered, and you can kind of see how it's just being very kind of you're just being very clever and creative with that, with the kind of the one time with the kind of time frame of THAC. So yeah, it's a really kind of well put together film where it's like as you're watching it you're not really thinking about the fact that it's like THAC, do you know what I mean? But it's like you can kind of see that you've kind of shot it in such a way where it's like they are very kind of small sets, but just like you feel a sense of detail in them.
Yeah, you kept the scope small enough so you're able to add a lot of polish, which I think is really impressive.
Yeah, that's what I think it was like last year I kind of started that because my first attempt at THAC was like a disaster and I don't like that film. And then I took a year off, and then last year I was like I just basically cut in half like what I thought I could do, because I was like I learned I'm like I can't do what I think I can, so I'm just gonna cut it in half, because to me like the polish is like for me like the most important thing of like being happy with it is like I want it to feel like it matches the quality of my other stuff. So it's a nice, I like the you kind of have this in Brawl as well, but like you have to be really resourceful, and it really pushes you to like do stuff you wouldn't normally do. So like the set design and the shots I choose aren't things I maybe would normally do like if I had more time, but I think it like turned out better because of that, which I really like that restriction.
Yeah, a lot of shots that don't actually have a lot of bricks in them, if you were to really think about it. But yeah, just shot cleverly. Yeah, put together really well.
The lighting is very impressive. I scrubbed through this film, and I went back through your channel as well to see what else you've been doing. And it looks like at one point you definitely upped your game for lighting. I was wondering if it was a conscious choice, or was it more something you just kind of kept learning about, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know where like it is a pretty clear like kind of cutoff though. I think like last year's THAC was a big change for me because I started doing like a lot more like natural lighting, and like I have these like colored like folders that are like I got on Amazon for really cheap, and that really made the look of like my second Brawl entry, the French one, that was like
that was great. Yeah.
That it has that look to it, and I like it. But then with THAC last year, I started doing just more like really like just like the normal like the plain light that I have, just the basic, like no tinting of it. And I really like that look. It's I think it, with the color, like having any kind of tint, it made it like easy to. I think it made it easy for me to just say the shot was good enough, because I was like, oh, it looks good and it looks pretty, but it doesn't look like quite right. So like with the natural light, it forced me to like make it look good without having that like crutch of like a color to make it like trick people into thinking that it looks pretty just because it's tinted a certain color.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I would say like your Brawl 2023 entry definitely leaned on color, but not in a way that I would say you were using it as a crutch. It's more like it had a style that reminded me far more of like Guillermo del Toro vibes, and the use of color being used as kickers and accents, but still having your key light be fairly like clean. But you're right, like I think it is far more challenging to make clean untinted light look good, and that's where like in this entry, like for THAC this year, you definitely nailed it. Of like the stained glass windows bringing in color, but also everything else is fairly clean, but you're using it very precisely. Like you're shooting from the shadows. You are honestly, the shot that I love the most is the shot looking up at the wall, I think, of the cross and the two shells, and like it is multi-source diffused light from bottom right. I'm like, it's a gorgeous shot, and it feels soft and actually feels very like it's like a tenderly lit shot almost. It has a really cool feeling to it that then contrasted with everything, like the shot out the front door of the door of the church, or out the door, I guess. You're definitely using it narratively, I guess. Like your lighting and your treatment of lighting is being used in a very clean way to further your story, rather than just being like, oh, it's lit cool. Like you're right, like it actually is lit. It's lit carefully and more intentionally.
I think that like, you know, a huge part of like when you're learning to you know, how to light things, and you know how to do it in a sort of, you know, way that's kind of motivated. It's one of the things you really have to think about is like, what does this light mean in the context of the world? Like how does it, what source to come, you know, where is the source? Like what's like, where is this supposed to be coming from? And I think once you've answered that question, you're able to, I mean, immediately once you've done that, I think, you know, it makes such a difference. And then I think it enables you to really think about the actual setting as well. Like again, the same glass windows, like, you know, what you can do with that, like how can you add the mood to that, that kind of, where it makes sense in the context of the film, but also like it actually kind of feels like it's saying something thematically. And then you've got like that sort of, you know, this shot like from at night when he's kind of like opens the door, and you see that kind of cold kind of like sort of night kind of light shining, like sort of reflecting onto him, and the kind of warmth of the inside, and that kind of being, you know, him shutting the door, shutting the warmth away, I guess, sort of thematically. Like it makes sense in the context of the film of like what's going on, but it also kind of like it also has thematic relevance, and it's things like that which like it's just a really solid combination of those two things, you know, that really adds to lighting, like, yeah, and really, you know, where lighting is telling the story. Yeah.
And even like the yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
The shine on the coins in the bowl as well is like, it tells the story. Like the shiny gold coins catch your eye, and you're like, oh, that's okay. And it also like helps to draw your eye to those elements and draw your eye to parts of the story that are important. I do have to say though, like as an old person, seeing a 4K brick film is jarring. I was like, are we is it allowed? Can these things be this sharp? That's not cool. Stop that.
It's too sharp. Distracting.
Yeah. It
I
is.
love the
It is
little
actually
lens
scratchy,
flares you've
man.
got there too, and some of the shots coming through the stained glass.
Yeah, that's actually I do have I like everything I use is pretty like really cheap and accessible. And I know you're probably getting annoyed with me, Graham, for not like using the aperture MCs yet. But I promise I will use them at some point. But like everything I use is just like a desk lamp. I have like
Hmm.
4, just from Walmart, and then like the little folders. But I have one like my secret like weapon is this. I don't know if I have it. I might have it here. It's this little like I don't think I have it. It's a little like piece of cardboard, like real thin, and it has like a metallic like kind of coating on it. It came in a like a nail file set that I got. It was like a little like Hello Kitty nail file, and the like backing of the packaging was like this like, really shiny like gold thing. And I got it like right before THAC of last year, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. It's like a little mirror. I can like reflect light with this, and it makes like the biggest difference. And I don't know what I'll do if I ever lose that piece of cardboard. So like the shot like specifically the stained glass, it's just like I think right after the close up of like the cross on the wall, like I set the lights up and everything, and I had it looking like pretty good, and I was like, oh, that looks good. And I was like, oh, I should try the cardboard, so I grabbed that. And it like that it gave it that lens flare. It didn't have that before. And it gave it like just a glow that like you just can't get. Like I've just never been able to get it without that. So
I think it's
that's my
good.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good for people to hear that too, because I think a lot of people set up their lights and they're like, okay, like I'm good to go. I just need to make sure I set the lights in the right place. And it's like, well, no, there's a lot of shaping you have to do after that. And you know, you can use flags and screens and mirrors and all these other things to like really get the light exactly where you want it and get it out of the places you don't want. So like turning on your lights and pointing them at the set is like step one, and there are like 10 steps after that, and that kind of distinguishes. You know, it's not always the gear. Like better gear obviously makes things easier on you a lot of times, but I mean the fact that you can get this with just Walmart desk lamps and a piece of cardboard, I think should be encouraging to a lot of people who don't have the good gear, because you know, and the to bridge that gap, it really just takes the time and the intentionality and using the little things to get the set to look how you want.
Yeah, I mean something that I do kind of want to sort of highlight actually is that for anyone sort of like, you know, all the viewers or listeners, I guess, is that you know, there's a lot that you can do with just sort of like finding just like things that you have, and in some ways that like, you know, that are just sort of like handy, and just sort of like just being creative of what you can do with that. I mean, it's kind of like the ethos of like what THAC is generally. It's like, you know, just working what you've got, but also just in terms of like, yeah, like it's small things like that which can really I guess like what I would say is that like, you know, for what I would consider like, you know, obviously I now use this like sort of the small rig light kit for my films, but what I would say is like probably my most like my best sort of like lighting in any film that I've made was probably my the track attract, my Brawl 2021 entry, and that was using these really cheap sort of desk lamps which I bought off Amazon, and they were like, I think about £20 for like the 3 of them. They weren't like great lights, but and they were quite. I think the almost awkward thing about them was that they were very kind of like, the bottom of them were really like the heaviest part of them, but they were quite light generally. So like they would always kind of like fall over by their own weight. Like you'd have to like position them in such a way, otherwise they'd fall over, and they were always like on the verge of like being knocked. And I had to do this like, you know, to diffuse them. I guess like, you know, 2 bits of tack and just like put like, you know, a piece of tissue paper like, you know, over it. And then I would use like, you know, I didn't have gel lights. I didn't have like gels, so I actually used wrappers from I don't know if you have like College Street in the US, but basically these kind of like the wrapping of College Street comes in this like colored film, and I would just use like those colored film because they come in different colors. So you have like blue, red, you know. So I literally just kind of got like a couple of blue College Street wrappers, and like lit like on a white wall, and I created this kind of quite kind of muted blue sky that looked really natural for like the for the track attract, and then I used like a yellow wrapper for like sort of that kind of warmer sort of like sunlight, and then I also you know that's why
clear plastic, yeah, basically tiny lighting gels.
Yeah, tiny lighting gels, and yeah, no, it like I look at that now and I think like that is still like the best lighting I've ever done, like for a brick film, and it was with like really cheap kind of gear and literally wrappers from Sweets, and and it ended up like actually looking good. So that's something that like you know I want to kind of make people aware of, like is that like you know it's a lot of it is just like seeing what you can do with what you've got. And yeah, just a good idea, like, is a huge part of it, definitely.
I was just thinking about the point of shooting brick films at 4K and like sometimes using a macro lens and stuff. It's something that I wouldn't have ever thought about in the past, but like now you can see the dust and you can see like the oil from your fingers, and every time you touch the figures, it shifts a little bit, and it annoys me so much in macro shots. And like even for THAC, I was tempted. I was like, oh, do I have the time to go in and like just clean up some dust frame by frame? But I was like, no, I have
and
to
the
let
little
it go
pieces
for
of
THAC.
fuzz that show up for one frame.
Oh yeah.
Still see those in my film sometimes, and I'm like, I didn't catch that on my when I was capturing it.
I think one of the craziest things I've done for a shot is that I had a shot. I can't remember what it was in, but I really I really liked it. But it was a close up, like with a macro lens, and there was this little piece of dust that I didn't notice till the end, and I didn't notice it until it moved, and it it disappeared. And you don't like think about it until you see it go away. So I like went and like in order to like save the shot, I went and like I got a little like I took a toothpick and I like just like touched it to like a dusty part on my shelf to like get dust, and I like put it like back. Like I replaced the dust, and it like you don't notice it. And I think like at that point I was like from then on I just like dusted everything. Like before every shot I would like wipe it all down and like really check it carefully. But before that I was like, I don't know what to do, I just have to put the dust back.
That's such a funny.
Yeah, I think the next thing I have to get is a bigger monitor for Dragon Frame, because I miss so many things like all the time until I'm editing on like a monitor twice as big, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I miss all these things.
That was actually something we were noticing that when watching the full THAC playlist. We were like, so many of these films have hairs on the set. Like it was so common to see hairs, and we're like, is this a problem because people are shooting on phones that they can only see the preview on the phone screen and like they can't catch the hairs when they're shooting?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah.
People are just pulling their hair out because it's THAC.
Because it's THAC.
I have that problem myself. I just anyway, I just pull my hair out, so it's a bad habit. But yeah, especially with brick filming, it's something which I'm aware of, especially with long hair. Like I need to like make sure I don't do that too much, you know.
The other thing with 4K and really high quality videos is you have to get the focus correct, because you can't mask bad focus pulling with just low resolution. And so if things are out of focus, like you notice it a lot more.
Yeah, I do have one or two shots that annoy me because the focus and the figure just the focus shifts, but it ends at just the wrong point, and it's
I hate that.
Yeah.
I think we could talk about the top 10 now.
Yeah, I was thinking that actually. We probably should start talking about the top 10.
I mean, of course, we have discussed a couple of them already.
Yeah. So
decently well enough, but yeah.
I was actually thinking like because of that, because we probably have like less like because we discussed a few of them. do we want to like highlight, give a shout out to any like that we particularly liked, that were like or did not like make the top 10? I guess.
Oh, you
like...
already know which one I want to point
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I'm interested to hear from the judge's perspective. All right.
Yeah. Let's talk about Joko's.
Oh please, yes.
Is that the anti
freaking
bricks and
love
roaches
that
entry?
one.
That one's
Or my-
fantastic.
No, that's
Was that
the
Slurpy?
Johnny Thunder auction one. I love that one so much.
Yes.
I had that one very high on my list, and I think it's definitely the most tightly written of the THAC
Yeah.
entries, in my opinion. It's just so, all of his films are pretty witty and fast paced, but this one especially is. I like the gag that's kind of all the way through with them unknowingly bidding on the ruby, but I think it works really well throughout the whole thing, and the comedic timing is really great with just a lot of the antics that go on in the film. So I had a lot of fun watching that one, and I have fun every time I watch that one.
Yeah, I think like it kind of goes like for all of Joko's stuff, but like the fact that you can follow any of it as well as you can is so impressive, because like there's so
It's
much
kind of a
going
miracle.
on. Yeah, and it's so like funny and like it's so like chaotic, but like it's easy to make something chaotic that you can't understand. Like anyone can do that, but like he makes it like chaotic and fun and funny, but also like really easy to understand. Like you don't have to try to follow the story. It just clicks immediately, and it's like that's impressive. Like that's a gift.
Mhm. I think I'll rattle off a few. I'm looking at the results now. Yeah, I loved Max Butcher's Liege Lord.
yeah.
Really funny, great voice acting and writing. I loved I Don't Love You Anymore by Gravity Films 4.
Yeah.
It was an impressive
That's
one
one
by
of my
somebody
favorites.
who's newer.
Yeah.
That was a great one.
And
yeah.
also Dara Toomey and Steve Collins entry Persistence.
Yeah.
Another great one.
That was going to be one that I wanted to shout out. That was personally very high up on my ranking, and yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was I thought it had some really tight kind of like dialogue. I thought it was like it did kind of like play on the kind of like the kind of the joke, I guess, for quite a long time, but it worked. I felt like for me, and I think it's got some great comedy timing. Quite a long entry as well. Like I think for THAC.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, it was.
Yeah, no, that one was a real kind of one I really enjoyed a lot.
Also, yeah, Full Fill and the Limericks by the Tenacious Frick in 11th
just
place.
just missed it. Yeah, that one was great.
And
Yeah.
it won the Full Fill competition, the best Full Fill entry.
Yeah.
It's funny he just mentioned that it was based off of the TAC man, the
Mhm.
design for him.
It's funny.
I will say I did have Swabby very high on my list, along with Perispera.
Oh yeah.
Well, Swabby we will be talking
We will
about
be-
again. So
We will talk about Bobby, yeah. Yeah, Paris
think-
at Astra.
I think my favorite like was Willow Trees for the Love of Love. That's I don't know why, I just absolutely loved watching it. It's just the one shot, the kind of with the visual comedy and stuff. I just was like, I don't know. That's my personal kind of favorite of the THAC entries.
Yeah, I did like that one a lot. Yeah, he's great at those one-shot films where it's all nicely set up with nice comedic, like visual comedy going on.
I really enjoyed For Dad by Like a 74 Productions as well. I thought that was a great entry, and I think that it's got some really nice like lighting and sort of set design generally, but also I thought that the actual kind of like gag towards it at the end so of it all was really was nicely put together as well. I thought that was a good entry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we should probably head off now. Start off with the top 10. So starting off number 10th place, we have. It is here. Yeah, we have The Way Home by Jacob Crow, in 10th place. And yeah, starting off, It's such a like this one is like it's so kind of like the scope of it, like it's just like wow, you know, in terms of like what he's actually doing with the camera, like that opening shot, it's just so insanely close to like to figure and everything, and it has some genuinely incredible like rain effect as well, like. You know, it's not something which it's something which has been done before in brick filming, but like that level of just like the actual effect of it is just so good.
I hate we doing rain every frame for THAC.
Yeah.
It's jarring at how crisp it is, especially with the rain effect. You can see droplets in the background. We're still in focus on the bottom.
Yeah.
It was a good choice too. A good blending of digital rain too, digital ground too.
Oh,
I'm always amazed whenever people use rain without it, like, or water without it, like, building up into puddles. It's like, right, they must be just seriously dabbing down some paper towels, like, right, need to...
I just want to apologise
Do something
to viewers that I actually accidentally had the audio from the film playing as I was previewing it then on OBS. I forgot to mute this one. So yeah, I just got a comment saying the film audio was a bit too loud. So yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully you can still hear us.
Perils of live rather than editing in post.
Yeah.
Ooh, I saw some looping there. I see. That's handy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They're
another
on a
very
minute 10. I
economic
was like,
film.
that helps.
Yeah.
Because I was wondering, it would be when I've done like product photography, doing droplets on like beer cans, that kind of stuff. Usually I use like glycerin rather than water because it can withstand the lights a lot longer and it doesn't evaporate. It kind of just stays there. But I feel like if you were adding glycerin to a Lego set like this, you would end up just with some greasy bricks for about a year or so because you couldn't possibly clean it all off properly.
Yeah, it'd be garbage in my eyes after that.
You throw 'em all out with everything.
I think Jacob Crow must be using the probe lens.
Yeah.
Lucky.
I don't think I can explain like some of those shots otherwise. Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to sound a bit silly, but our probe lens is expensive.
Yeah.
About 1,500.
Nice.
Like, which
Pocket
shots
money.
are you thinking are probe lens shots?
The opening shot, I think.
Yeah, so you're thinking like, of the tip of the arrow.
Well, it's like the close.
Yeah, I think tip of the arrow, and I think also the shot of the two people with their heads together. That looks like a probe lens to me as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, it does look like the lens is actually close in physically
Yeah, right.
in the space with them.
Without it being like sort of distorted. If it was even with a like a diopter for macro, you still wouldn't see it be that clean. I see what you mean. Yeah.
I just want to comment again on the rain actually, because it's something which like I think I guess with a probe lens, like you can see like how tiny these droplets must be, but like they're so vivid, and it's crazy because the actual rain, it has a natural speed, like you know, in old brick films, like if you watch something like Unrenewable, like you can kind of see how like the actual rate of the kind of like the droplets, it's kind of like rapidly kind of like going in a kind of unnatural way, whereas like this, like it's the rainwater is actually quite slow, like it's,
I guess you must be only putting new drops on every couple of frames, but he's taking multiple frames as the first round of drops, like, you know, slowly goes down a bit.
The
Does look-
droplets are also, they're really tiny. Like most brick films are kind of huge droplets.
Yeah.
Here it really surprised me.
Yeah, disciplined application. I think he held the spray bottle or whatever
Yeah, it must be
further
spray
away
bottle.
than most people will.
Much like a much finer mist for sure to try and get that scale to look correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right. Like, these are actually tiny droplets. Yeah, you'd use a you wouldn't use a spray bottle. You'd use a mister for that you'd probably use on on plants, a misting bottle.
Mhm.
So you get a lot finer drops like that.
Yeah. But the one thing, whenever I'm shooting with macro filters on regular lenses, I get chromatic aberration, which I don't see here. And I mean,
Yeah,
I
right.
kind of like the look of chromatic aberration. I kind of think it looks
Me
cool.
too,
But
yeah.
but if you don't want that, then yeah, like I don't see it in some of these really close shots, which also makes me think they're probably probe lens shots.
It's interesting
Or
because
a webcam.
I don't think any webcam could do this.
You have to see
Yeah,
that
this is
one
not
lens.
webcam 4K. This is DSLR 4K.
Yeah, for sure.
It's yeah, no, it's a great, it's amazing. Like I think yeah, just the level of detail, like the crispness of it is just, yeah, it's amazing.
He's flexing those olive green flower stems too.
Yeah. Oh,
For the Lego nerds out there.
Yeah. Olive green is a color I've never bulked up on. I don't really have much of it at all.
Yeah, actually, should we head over to Nine's Place?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So this was It's Not Your Vault by Goldpick
Oh, yeah.
Productions. This one was
Another one shot.
Oh, this is great, yeah.
yeah, this was a great kind of a really great kind of like little skit that's just like really nicely put together. And yeah, all done in one shot. It kind of reminded me, it was interesting because you had like both Willow Trees and this one has a kind of similar kind of vibe to it, especially with the fact it's like a one shot. And they're both like really nice. They're kind of perfect like THAC films, I'd say. Just a really solid kind of execution of like you know, a simple story, but just executed just like perfectly. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good.
Fantastic.
It's definitely nice for it to use the editing to, you know, do multiple time jumps rather than having to painstakingly have everyone go everywhere, you know.
It could also,
And it's
like,
better for it. It's better for
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
could hide the set bumps if there were any.
I love the sound design on that one was really good. I mean, it was just really good in general, but especially for THAC, it like had a really detailed sound design to it.
It's always impressive for THAC. I hate doing sound design for THAC.
I
Yeah.
always love
It
when
makes
people
me want to
use
give up.
practical effects, like just keeping it, breaking it to flame pieces.
I would
and
like to know
whatnot,
it.
like-
I was gonna say I would like to know in universe. I want to know why all the cops are in the vault. Why are they all just hanging out in there?
Having coffee.
I mean,
Coffee break.
I feel like they made a lot of noise like trying to get in. There's a lot of like failed attempts to get into the actual vault, and clearly they haven't like
Well, I guess the other question is like,
yeah.
like they would have been making a lot of there'd be a lot of noise, and like they'd be grinding at the thing, and there's a mouse in the first shot. So how long have they been in there? That a mouse is comfortable wandering around outside. It's like, have you been in this vault for hours? Is this a very friendly mouse? Like, what are the? Yeah, so many questions.
A few months
Maybe-
of time, they're just chilling there.
Maybe,
They just know how to get out.
yeah, maybe they were stuck in there. They were trying to help them, and then they arrested them.
Maybe the police were robbing the bank first and got locked in.
Oh yeah, they had to play it cool.
It could be an Ocean's 11 style thing where like these are actually other bank robbers who are just pretending to be cops. And they have those mugs like on stand like, oh, if anyone else comes in, just pretend you're on coffee break, and we'll figure it out from there. The heist of a heist.
Yeah, they just have to keep up appearances and arrest the other
Until they get
robbers.
to they make a fake prison. We gotta take these guys to a prison of some sort. It's funny, like with films like this, I love seeing the use of bricks and pieces that aren't in their usual function. I know it's like the even just having like 3 lightsabers as your vault door is a fun thing that I think is unique to brick filming, where you go, oh, I know where that's from. I know that piece.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's like it kind of
And like
it reminds me of the kind of like like with mock building, like it kind of makes you think of those sort of things where it's like just using something in a way where it's like, oh, I never thought of using it that way,
Yeah, they call it NPU, nice parts usage.
Yeah.
It
I think one of my
did
favorite.
make me question if it was actually meant to be a fish or just a fish-shaped object.
Mhm.
That makes me curious what a fish-shaped object is.
I know,
It's
right? I'm
meant to
like,
be a fish.
well, like a fish-shaped vase that would look like just like a fish, but it's also a vase.
Yeah.
I'm always surprised at how well, just watching this a few times, like it's all tiles, and it's
Oh, yeah.
there's not a lot of jittering movements in the figure. Like
And that bothered me
I know
too. Like, why don't I? Yeah.
I just like the way it all looked. I thought whenever I seen the title, is this going to be a Fallout New Vegas reference or something like that? Because it's like, but
Oh, yeah, that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
and animating on tiles is plain for THAC.
Well, and also consider like the tiles are clean. Like, I don't see any sign of like blue tack. So that, but I'm also not seeing tiles jumping around from being cleaned off between frames. So I say I'm bothered by it, but I'm more like, I guess I am impressed by it. But it does bother me that I'm not seeing the evidence of someone having to use blue tack. And I'm like, well, what did you do here? And no paint outs and no anything else. Like it's really getting on my nerves now. I can't. I don't see anything wrong. I'm like, that's not fair.
He must just be hiding it very well, which we very much appreciate because we're always complaining about people who don't hide their THAC.
Yeah, I will say, it would have been funny if it was a Fallout like reference, like a twist at the end where maybe it was kind of like the point where the protagonist kind of like escapes the vault and like they've been trying to get in this entire time, and then it just there's like the vault opens without them doing anything. Like,
I've been playing the classic Fallout, and it's like I'm hoping it's not like the super mutant commander or something hiding in that vault, like just evil British voice actor. But it's like no.
Yeah, I got into Fallout 1 recently enough as well. I quite like it.
That's class.
Well, the actual like top down like original one from the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh wow, nice.
Cool.
If you think
Yeah,
stop
kick it.
motions, you need patience for stop motion. You need patience for the classic Fallout.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
do need patience because when I started, I thought I wasn't gonna like it, but I gave it some time and actually got into it. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I heard people talk about the original Fallout much. Like I always hear a lot about like Fallout 3 onwards, but like, yeah. But that's not in the top 10, so we should probably Fallout 1 didn't quite make the top 10, unfortunately, so we should probably head over to 8th place.
Next year.
So we in 8th place we have M is for Company by Slide Studios. This one was
I like this one.
this one was really nice. And it was quite in a variety of different like sets in this film. I really like the kind of like pod that he's in, and the kind of like the lighting of that. And it had a really nice kind of like a nice sort of twist at the end. Like having to kind of complete the mission even though it's completely like, a waste of time and a waste of his life basically. But it was this one was really good. I really like this one.
Yeah, some good science fiction entries in this THAC.
Yeah.
Spaceships.
I guess something I will say is that we were kind of aware, like as judges, that like we weren't really consciously thinking about it at the time. But then as we were kind of going through like a lot of our favorite ones and the films that would make like the top 10, we were like, whoa, okay, we've got like a few like science fiction based like brick films all like together. Like, what's going on here? That wasn't like intentional, but like it just so happened there were some really good like space films that just deserved high rankings.
Yeah, I mean there are 3 in the top 10.
Yeah, and they're all like in the way as well.
Yeah, there's always a lot of space in all the contests, but this one had like an unusual amount of them, and they were all really like high quality too.
Yeah.
I guess like fulfilling a mission is kind of like you can kind of see a space interpretation of that. But yeah, no, this was. They all kind of, they deserve to be where they are. These films, they are really good.
Yeah. And again, like for THAC, you know, like this is another one where it doesn't even really feel like a THAC film. Like it feels like it has a real plot, a complete story that has a good ending and good length. Brick film looks good. Like it could just be released at any time, and that's just your new Brick film release, and everyone would say, "Nice."
True. Yeah.
Which that probably goes for a lot of the top entries in this tag.
Yeah, I think it's like there's a lot of a lot of these films. It's like it's funny how we got to a point now. I think where the standard is so high where we don't even really think about the fact that all this is done in 24 hours. You know, like it's and how like without the context it doesn't seem that way. You know. Yeah.
We almost take it for granted, especially if you're watching the whole playlist. You're watching, nearly 200 Brick films, and each one you're kind of like, yeah, that was pretty good, nice. All right, next one, yeah, that was pretty good, nice. But if you really think about it, like if you really stop and think, like every single one of these was made in 24 hours. Like that's incredible. Like individually,
in the same 24 hours,
incredible.
too, which is kind of bizarre. That they're all. It isn't just like that. They're that limit. They're all happening at the exact same time, which is kind of really cool.
Yeah. That's a really interesting element of THAC for sure. The fact that like all this is happening simultaneously. Everyone knows where they were at that point.
Yeah, I always wonder like how many people like are like taking a picture at the exact same time. Like, does it ever sync up? And how many times?
Yeah, I wonder too how many people are requesting for Jay Silver voice lines as well. At that time.
Oh man, his DMs must be crazy.
He's overworked for sure. Does he do that every year? Does he like offer his voice for every FAQ?
He has been for the last number of years a staple of the contest playlists. Yeah.
How can we
That's awesome.
get in contact with him? I would love for him to voice in some of my stuff.
Well, he's on the Discord.
You got to send a carrier pigeon.
And because of the tariffs now, it'll be hard to get into Canada with that.
Yeah. He's gonna have to start charging now. It's counter tariff.
Exactly.
Actually, it's funny because I was thinking about like how, with the amount of work someone like Jay does, like if you're actually going to like, if he was actually going to be paid for it, like he would have to have like a pretty good like salary to do the amount of work he does like in 24 hours like
Well, and the amount of talent he has too is crazy.
For sure. Yeah, people just I think they like
I don't know how good they have it.
yeah for sure.
All right, I'm gonna have to log off here. Fun chatting with you guys, and
Cool.
good luck talking about the rest of the films.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great to hear your insights.
Congrats for everyone who plays here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us and for judging.
See ya.
Yeah.
Take care.
Right, let's move on to number 7.
Yeah, I'll just once again check that the audio's not playing. Okay, cool. So number 7, we've got Acacia by World of Shrimpy. Once again, another sort of space-themed brick film. This one was great. Like it's aesthetically just like a real standout, I felt, and I really love that kind of space set is really cool, like the actual planets that they're on. It also has like again another some really nice lighting as well, it was really nicely executed.
This is really interesting to me because it was somebody who I'd never heard of before. Like they never entered a Bricks Motion contest before or anything, and I was thinking, where did this person come from? Like who made this? And yeah, it's somebody who has been brick filming for a couple of years and has some like videos with a lot of views and stuff. But yeah, to me, it came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And
I like seeing the schedule on their description as well.
Oh
See
yeah.
how they actually had to approach it like 3:30 a.m. to 5 a.m. script writing, not 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. set building. I'm like, okay, that's really interesting to see how it's divided up, and also like they're actually keeping track of it, and yeah, seeing how the follow through happened.
And actually, as we speak, World of Shrimpy's actually on chat. He just said, "Thanks for putting on such a great THAC. I'm so glad I could be part of it."
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
He only
I
just
love how
Abilities
vibrant the
for this,
set design was for this.
he said he only just found out about the community as well. Yeah, well,
Oh, wow.
welcome.
Oh, cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I love the
Tax
color
value
use in
system.
that alien landscape. That's super cool. Like the pink and green. I'm drawn to it. Feels different, and it feels like a bit more. It feels alien. Like it feels like it's very unique and very bumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of used to like a lot of in brick films, like space brick films, when there's like a planet, it's often quite like a simple set, like it's just sort of like the suggestion of like a planet, like kind of like the moon or something, with like a black background, whereas this one it kind of feels like really kind of made an effort to kind of make it look alien, and like there's a lot of kind of like growth, like the trees and plants and stuff. Yeah, it's a really cool set.
Yeah, I like what Landon said about like it being bumpy. Like I think they did a good job, like leaning into the look of like the studs instead of just having them be there. Because Lego, it fits.
Yeah.
Like it looks like the studs don't look out of place, which normally they don't, just because we're all used to it. But like, I think to someone just like who didn't know much about Lego, if they watched it, they would be like, yeah, that looks like how it should look, even though there's like studs on everything.
Yeah, having like a dynamic surface like that actually feels like it would definitely take a lot more time, but it also lends a lot to the story and the image. Like because we're used to seeing like a base plate or whatever, and sort of having some things around and maybe it being built up, but having every single, apart from like the flat like areas, like there's not really much spot there that aren't unique where they are. So like nothing's repeated too much. So you're also seeing a lot of visual noise that is helping to sell the story and the environment too. That's super cool.
For sure.
Very impressive.
Yeah. I like to make my sets look pretty clean and everything's tiled and like surfaces are flat, and I feel very I don't want to do like rugged surfaces, like rugged terrain and everything's bumpy and uneven. It's very daunting to me. It seems like it would take a lot of work to make it like that.
Scary. It's great seeing the schedule though. Like it's a 4-hour set build. That makes sense.
You were saying that the mod elements determines the space planet look, and that's kind of kind of reminds me. It's kind of interesting actually about, especially the fact that he's kind of like new to THAC generally, is that like there's actually some really good stuff that people can take from this in terms of like when it actually comes to the mod elements. Like there's some really creative use of like blending the mod element into the things that were going on in the brick film. One sort of particular bit is like in the spaceship when there's that scene where like it's like kind of like a liquid sort of like, or like there's like sort of this sort of pipe sort of thing, where it's kind of like you can see kind of red and green, and it's kind of like it kind of signifies like that kind of like it's being filled up. Like that was really again with a creative use of the kind of mod element. I think it's great kind of seeing that kind of like integration of the mod in the actual film.
Yeah, it's interesting for someone that I assume this is like one of their first Bricks in Motion contests to like embrace the mod elements in such a way, because I think a lot of people who've been doing these contests for a long time will just like put the like two pieces like just in the background of every shot, just kind of out in the open, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's interesting to see someone come out of nowhere and then just like hide them like really well and work them into the set, and it doesn't feel obvious, which I feel like is an interesting way of using them for your first time.
Sure.
Yeah.
So should we head over to 6th place?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So
Another
we've got
space entry.
Falling for the Stars by Easterwood Productions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this one was really cool and really kind of like quite trippy, and like it's interesting because like I feel like there's been like other brick films that have had similar kind of like thematic kind of, not just, I don't just mean like space, but like the whole thing of kind of getting lost in space, and that kind of, you know, kind of passage of time, but like the way in which it's done, like the kind of like the trippy kind of like dreamlike nature of it was really like unique, and I just think it had a very kind of like creative spin on the kind of story it was telling, and I really like the sort of the clay kind of like monster that is actually genuinely quite unnerving, and makes for like a very, I think Chris W mentioned it like in the results stream, it's like the most like unnerving like thumbnail.
Yeah, it belongs with like Orbital Lizard Studios kind of stuff, where like the clay, like it shouldn't work with the Lego, but it does. It just kind of like it fits the really weird, creepy kind of vibe. Yeah, I really like that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these THAC entries, like people doing shots of ships floating in space and like pretty wide shots, and characters having to float in space. Like it feels really ambitious for THAC to me. It's like it's not something I'd want to be having to approach for THAC.
Yeah, I did it like once for the continue the story thing. I don't ever want to do that again. Like that, I don't think I did a very good job with it. Like there's a couple of shots I'm happy with, but these people did like really great stuff in like 24 hours, and I was spending like sometimes like upwards of a day on one of those shots, and I still wasn't happy with it. So it was really impressive stuff. It's impressive just to try that in 24 hours, let alone to like pull it off as well as they did.
Well, I thought what you made for Continue the Story looked really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely one of the better Continue the Story entries.
Yeah. It was a standout, yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like this one. I think it's really nice, kind of really interesting kind of like vibe and aesthetic, and yeah, no, I was really happy to see this place in 6th. It was yeah,
it was one of my favorites. I think I'm in my like personal playlist I made of favorites. It reminds me a lot of an anime movie called Memories. I don't know if anyone has seen it here, but like it's like 3 different stories that make up the whole movie, and the first one is like the short film is like really similar, like just kind of feeling, and like I feel like they would go like they just like fit together like perfectly as a pair of stories.
Oh yeah, the 95 one.
Yeah.
It's really interesting comparison, yeah.
So should we head over to Swabby by Flat Shrug Guy? Yeah, so
Love this one.
yeah, this one was great. Probably like one of the funniest entries, and really tightly written, like really, really funny. And I think like it's funny because I feel like there's definitely ways that like a similar story could have been done where it didn't land, especially with like THAC, but like so much of the kind of like comedic timing and the voice acting that was genuinely really good, and like the kind of I think the animation of the actual characters as well, like the fact that they kind of go with the voice acting, like all of it just comes together so well. And yeah, this one was just like, it was just really funny, and like, and for the length as well, that it's it's one of the longer entries, but kind of it's doesn't feel like it overstays its welcome. Yeah, I thought it was a real standout, and really glad to see it play so highly.
Yeah, this and what was it? I forget the name. Was it the Naked Fireman? Like, these were, like, to me, the most absurd entries. Like, what am I watching here? I like yeah.
Yeah. You gotta love the classic pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had a couple of giggles.
It's a bit sort of classic brick film comedy style as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the face. I mean, I always loved the classic pirate faces as well. They're such they got so much character to them, and I've always loved them. They're just so funny.
Yeah, I do think those older Lego faces, they do have great character to them, and they're just really funny looking.
Yeah,
It just lend themselves to funny brick films like this.
It gives like the brick films a more like timeless sense, I guess, as well.
Yeah, that's true too.
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Because it's just a classic smelly face with, like, additional prints on top, isn't it? Like, it's
Yeah,
classic
Yeah,
smelly
totally.
with an eye patch, mustache, or whatever.
I think the Lego Pirates minifigures were the first ever to have like additional stuff on the faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Like 1989,
Yeah.
I think it was when they.
Yeah,
first
89,
did-
yeah.
It's crazy, like the fact that they're so kind of like pioneers in a sense, like, but yeah, they're just so good.
They're just silly guys.
Just
I do love to
being
see all of these
loose.
people who show up every THAC. You see their
Yeah.
name come up, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be, you have an idea of what the style of the film's gonna be like, and yeah, it's another good one.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I always
Yeah.
love it when I see a name like Sully or something, and I know I can skip it.
Whoa.
Only if you hate minions.
Yeah. It's
Next up, we have fourth, third, and second, which we have discussed
yeah.
on the stream already. So-
Speed run.
Yeah, what's the move with these three?
Well, I guess like with especially with this one, I guess not everyone was here when we did talk about this one.
Build different.
So yeah, I don't know if like Sully and
I love this one.
yeah.
Which one's this
Mhm.
built? Is this built different?
Oh,
The
cheers.
minifigure whose torso is a brick.
I love
Yeah, I
that
don't know
one.
if everyone else knows this, but the torso piece is a real piece, apparently.
Yeah.
I knew that the whole time. I didn't need to be told that.
I have this piece. I knew this.
Yeah, I have one in like green. I didn't know it came in teal though.
Yeah, I didn't
But
know
yeah, I
actually.
love the
Red, blue, green, and teal.
And then there's a light baby blue, I think they did as well. I have a few of them.
I thought they did an orange one too, but I might just be schizophrenic.
The
There
thing
could
that's
be-
kind of like sick is going to the Lego store and seeing all the torsos stacked up. The connection on them's really tight too. But
Yeah,
sometimes the
this
connection can
actually-
be weird on standard pieces.
Well, this could be definitely a minifig centipede of some sort if you had a bunch of them in a row.
That'll be the sequel to this film.
you're giving me ideas.
Yeah.
Built different
All
redux.
coming out.
I mean, you could have like imagine an entire
Full
wall of nothing but minifigures.
Arms waving around.
Like a living wall.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
think
This was.
I was,
You can go.
I was gonna say maybe there is a sequel, potential sequel for I'm Watching UP, where it's like an entire wall just like in a toilet.
They all turn their heads.
I mean, I'm not. I will say that like my brother came up with the crux of the idea, and it was like it's kind of all silly bits, but that was how it was supposed to end, with them all looking up and him smiling like I'm fulfilled, and then he looks down, but he's built above a urinal, and then walks in like kind of a minifigure, and it's just like yep, and then cut like a bricky or something like that. But as I said to my brothers, I have to animate this. I'm not. I want my entry to be allowed.
Yeah,
Like,
the difference between fourth and not placing.
Yeah.
Make two versions.
The unrated cut.
I do think it's
After
funny
Dark.
that like it sounds like when you're coming up with the concept that like it was almost like like initially going to be like a joke entry, and then it ended up becoming like a film that generally had like merit and ends up becoming one of the better one of the best films.
A favorite entry for a number of people. Yeah.
I think like the thing that like it's kind of, my brother thinks it's the funniest thing is that the character. This was also a hindrance, but the laptop I use is really tiny, and I couldn't see how in focus some of the shots were. So a lot of times the main character isn't in focus, and he thought that was hilarious. That like you've got this really ugly figure, and you don't even have respect to focus on him. And I was like, I didn't even think about that, but sure that we'll go with that.
That's a hilarious way of looking at it. Yeah. Now, do we have anything more to say about the horse stealer?
Oh god, I love that one. Yeah, I don't know what you guys already said about it, but I'm sure you guys talked about blocking like a lot. Cause it was incredible.
Just the nature of the bricks, honestly. You gotta do some blocking. Haha. Puns.
All brick films have blocking. No, really, like it does feel pretty rare for brick films to actually like give lots of attention to blocking and staging.
And like a large enough crowd as well, you actually need it too. You can't just have no one here is hidden at any point. Like there's no one's obscured. Everyone is in clear like view of the camera, which is challenging when you're dealing with different angles with a crowd like that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. I especially tried to keep them as visible as possible. I didn't want to hide them behind anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something that I myself would like to even do better with in brick films in the future. But it's certainly something that like people are trying to pay attention to, like how to level up their brick films. Like they could be studying like films that are really well regarded for their blocking of characters.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we kind of talk about in the Discord a lot. People will ask for like suggestions of brick films to watch, and people will kind of suggest like going and watching like feature films and stuff that aren't brick films. And I think it's a good example of like you can learn a lot from brick films about how to make brick films, but like there's like a significant lack of good blocking and staging in a lot of brick films, and so you're never going to learn that from just watching brick films.
Yeah, I do think it kind of lacks in a lot of newer feature films as well.
Yeah.
It's more like old style.
Yeah. Yeah, like 60s and 70s era, even like I guess 50s era too. You like a lot of the Sergio Leone like westerns in this style as well, and then I find the blocking in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is really good for crowd stuff, where everyone seems like they're in the right place every time for every shot, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's cool to
really
see the
carefully
background
considered.
figures always doing stuff too with their hands, at living their own lives.
Yeah.
I just keep seeing Johnny Bravo there in the background. No, what's the name of the adventure? The fake Indiana Jones for Lego? Is it Johnny Bravo? No.
Johnny Thunder.
Johnny Thunder. Thank you. No, not. I was like Johnny Bravo, the guy from Adult Swim. No. Cartoon Network. I keep seeing Johnny Thunder here, just spiking the camera with as if he's staring right down the barrel, which I think is also just making me giggle a bit. That this one guy in town just knows that they're in the film and just looking at the camera. Like, look at me, look at me. You can't help it.
So,
Yeah.
have we got much more to say about the ordination? Because we did talk about that a lot, actually.
This one we were all here for.
We did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very good
I
film.
just agree.
Yeah.
Like, on second thought, it's terrible. No, it's great.
Oh,
No.
no, absolutely.
Worse
Yeah.
than Dad.
Like, how did he get place?
Redo the count.
I think he's missing the model
shiny.
in every shot. No.
Too shiny, too clean, too crisp.
It's too good.
Downscale it. Sure.
Very, very well deserved
Yeah.
second place. But
Yeah.
now we must talk about
great.
first place, which we haven't actually mentioned at all yet, I don't think.
No, actually, yeah. It's surprising we haven't talked about this at all. But yeah,
I've been under a rock a little bit. Who won?
it's eye to eye with creation by Stanley Kubrick. Who unfortunately wasn't.
Stanley Kubrick is not particularly inclined to speak on podcasts and and so on. But I don't know. Maybe one of these years we'll get him.
Yeah.
Convince him, but not here for this. But yeah,
I'm sure
amazing.
he'll-
I can't
yeah.
believe how fast he can work. Even during
know,
THAC, like
right?
he was talking in the chat, he was like, "Oh yeah, I've already filmed a minute of footage," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I haven't even started shooting yet."
Yeah, he's just on it, and yeah, this one was just incredible in terms of and I know I've already said it several times, but it's the way in which it kind of feels like a 1980s brick film, but with the kind of standard, with the quality and the production values of 2025, and it just has such a vibe to it, such an aesthetic, which is kind of I mean, it's best described just by watching it, but yeah, it's just the level of the effects, and I think the way in which it has that kind of CRT effect, and the way it blend, it lets the effects kind of blend so perfectly, where you don't even know what's practical and what's been digitally done. There's that's kind of there's effect towards the at the beginning with the controls and everything. It looks digital, but it's actually and a physical effect. It's just truly incredible.
I gotta give special points for the set design.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah.
And yeah, it's cool that it changes scale as well. Got the
I love
micro
that.
big going around.
When it does the point of interest with the flat studs, and then I was like, oh, I wonder if is that, I don't know what's going to happen, and then you see kind of I don't know what scale you want to call it, but the bigger hand just appear, and I was like, oof.
Yeah, the big brick built hand. I think it was brick built, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not yeah, it was. I was thinking, maybe I'm misremembering. Maybe it was one of those torch figures, but no, it's brick built hand.
And it's one of those films as well, which kind of it blends the different kind of sizes, different scales, so kind of naturally that you don't even think about it, even if it's noticeable. It's just everything just blends so perfectly. And how are those the effect with the kind of kind of waves of light, isn't that kind of to do with the aperture?
It's a long exposure effect.
Yeah.
Where, you'd have something making the light, and you'd have a long exposure, and you'd be shaking it around while taking the frame, and it makes that wiggly.
And it's
light
actually done on set too. Because
Yeah.
if it was, I'm seeing reflections on the actual minifig from that, rather than just being done in post. It's actually very well done, in camera, which is really fun.
Yeah.
So all of that is practical. The lines through every like the figure and stuff like that?
The wiggly light is practical. It's on set.
Yeah, or like
Oh,
a
right,
minute 26 in if you're watching it. I'm staring at it now.
Wow.
Is it also whenever his face changes that like kind of?
Yeah. I think you did it there again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I was trying to figure out if the. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's a frame by frame effect. So he can swap out the head each frame for when it's rapidly changing face. Then do the light effect every frame.
It was funny.
It looked to me like maybe there's some some digital backgrounds being used, like a computer monitor maybe, rather than being green screen for the shots of like the space shots and the shot with him standing in front of the big head. It's hard to tell because of the VHS effect on top of it too. Like I can't actually tell if it is a comp shot or not, but it looks like a screen's being used for that background image rather than it being like a separately like comped in element, I think.
I think he used a screen. Yeah, I'm on the wiki.
Yeah. Oh, so
Yeah. He has a.
I grabbed the behind the scenes pictures. I pulled them off Discord and
sweet.
put them up on the wiki. So yeah, there's a couple of pictures that it looks like a monitor with the stars background.
Nice. That was what I was playing around with that. My very last brick film, I was doing a test. I was a Western. I was using that for sunset shots. I was using that as my lighting source. But I was like, I was waiting to see if it had been picked up and carried on with it at all in the last few years. Because I feel like monitors are getting cheaper and easier to use in that sense. And this looks almost seamless. Like I can't quite tell where it starts and ends by looking at just the frame, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, for you to have been doing that in like 2008, that would have been really remarkably uncommon then.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was nuts.
In
Made no
recent
sense.
years, I'd say it's like semi-common in recent years. There are a good number of people who are using monitors as backgrounds, but still, it's still high level. It's the the kind of people who are winning contests.
Yeah, and it shows here like it helped to sell the scale of that so easily rather than having it doesn't even feel like it's like part of a different thing, or you don't get removed from it, I guess, when you're watching. You're not sort of jumped out. And it's funny seeing like even like the use of different scale stuff. Yes, it's obviously a tiny person walking around in like the overhead shot, but the suspension of disbelief is being upheld so much you don't really care that it's a miniature, like a miniature ship and a miniature person. Like it kind of still works, and then jumping to the next shot being that rear, or I guess 2 shots later, like the digital background, it just makes sense, and it's just sort of like it is very craftful use of like multiple different scales all at once, and having a trust that the audience, or I guess they trust in themselves, that the audience will go along with it and not really question it and not be and not even like look at it too closely, that it still works.
Yeah.
I think the way Stanley like frames his shots of the different scales, like the one at the beginning with the little like computer monitor in the hand, like because a lot of people try different scales, but like they don't always like change their mindset of how they're like filming it. They just kind of like they just keep setting up shots the way they would if it was a minifigure, and they don't like take into account the different scale. And I think that plays a lot into like how you sell it, because like sometimes like it can be really obvious, but like in Stanley's, like you don't even think about it. I mean, like it's like a different scale, but like you don't like it doesn't take you out of the film.
No.
Yeah.
It just works. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like kind of the best part. Like you don't really notice it. Yeah, I think I'm seeing things here that I was definitely like curious about back in like 2008, almost 2007, but I had planned a shot where I was gonna do like that Western idea. It was like a general like moving pieces across a table as if he's arranging his troops, and I was gonna do a close up of a minute a miniature person on his table that was going to be a full-size minifig, and have my hand in a leather glove, pretending to be the minifig hand to try and like match the same like the shape of a minifig hand, but it never quite looked right. It's like, well, that's obviously a human's hand. Like it always threw me off. I think in this case, because he stuck to using a built minifig hand that it's just a larger scale. I think using bricks is crucial, that you're still in the same like universe. It's almost like it's a different resolution, but it still counts. Like it's like a different resolution of brick, but it still is the same material. So it kind of like, I think the audience is far more likely to go along with it than they would if it was a different material. And it was like, well, here's a paper mache hand that looks kind of like a minifig hand. You'd be like, well, they'll throw you off a bit. But I think, there's definitely a trust in, I think in brick films, especially for like when things are done with bricks, even if it's a different, like a scale change, and it's like, and it's obvious because you're still in that same material and that same medium. I think we all think it still counts, and it actually, this is a great example of that, where we're like, yep, that's still fine.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, we go along with it.
Yeah.
Just for this to craft its vibe with the visual and the sound design, in 24 hours.
This is nuts. Yeah.
It was funny. I have actually a funny story about when we were watching this for the first time, and because there was a few of us like watching it together, and Joko was joining us, but he was like, I think he was getting a train, and we were kind of watching this film. We were kind of like, when we were like, I think like when we were like, often we'll talk about like stuff going on when there's a brick film, like with a lot of brick films, but like, like talking about the brick film. But then like there were some films that like this where we just kind of like, we're just silent. We're just like really kind of like kind of sort of grasp in it, and then
dialed in.
And then like you have this kind of like, the voice of the kind of this sort of that kind of robotic voice, kind of talking throughout. And as the film ends, we hear this sound which is like saying like, the next train arriving at 11:52 will arrive in stuff on platform 2, and it was from Joko, and we were just like, it felt like it was part of the film.
Awesome.
But and on the results live stream as well, everybody saw it coming. They were like, oh yeah, here comes Stanley.
Yeah.
It's first place about to be announced. Yeah, we know it's going to be Stanley.
There is actually one brick film I do want to like honorable mention that we haven't mentioned yet, which kind of, I do feel like it kind of won, even if it wasn't in the top 30 or even was actually in the playlist. And it's an untitled THAC entry by I believe they're called Neurogamer. Is that the name?
Neon
Gamer, yeah. Which
unfortunately disqualified because I think it was late and it was too short and it had too much swearing, but it still won in our hearts.
Wait, which one is this? I thought you were talking about the. I thought you were talking about a different one. What's this one you're talking about?
It's.
I don't think.
I don't know if it's actually been like
released.
Like, I know it's.
Do we even have a public link?
Yeah. It was like an entry that we got like I received like 9 hours after the deadline, and it's very obviously kind of like a joke entry, but like it
I've
is
just sent it out to everybody in here.
Oh, I saw this in the Brick Film Day. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I mean it's obviously should have won. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking through like the wiki, like the images you uploaded to the wiki from the behind the scenes of the winning entry here. The car jack is borderline genius for the ship shot.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
yeah.
is that's not normal, right?
No.
That's
It's like
uncommon. Yeah.
being able to use the car jack means you can actually you turn it for precise up and down movement that is then locked in place. So you're dealing with like you can easily move something up and down. You could use it for larger parts of a set if you wanted to as well, as long as your set's built around it. But that's very clever.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I do struggle with moving things up and down, parts of the set or the camera. That's always a challenge.
Oh,
to
right.
me.
Yeah, you can even use that as like a. So I find like even if you have a tripod that has a crank on it that goes up and down, they tend to be very wobbly and like between frames. I wouldn't touch it. But
Yeah.
if you attach your camera to that, you could very carefully maneuver your camera up and down frame to frame and have it be pretty much precise. You'd know how much to turn that crank between frames, like how many degrees almost. You could be very precise with it, almost ease in and out too.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
gonna
really cool.
invest in the car jack industry
I know,
before
right?
the brick film.
Well, like, has anyone actually
Take it over.
invested in Blue THAC yet? It's been 20 years, guys. Like, has no one actually gotten stocks in Blue THAC? Because we probably could have jacked up their price by now. It could have been a whole GameStop thing all over again.
Pulling up my Robinhood account right now.
There's so many like clone brands of Blue THAC as well. Like,
Yeah, but we
Yeah,
know
I
they
don't
don't work though, right?
really
They're all
use Blue
bad.
Tack.
The other tacks, they end up being waxy. They end up leaving residue. They end up being stringy. They're not as good for animation. They have to use the real thing.
That's true.
Unless the competitors have gotten better in the last 20 years. I feel like we definitely had rules, personal rules of like, oh, I'm never touching that other stuff because it's not as good. You know who's used the wrong stuff because you see like a smudge over all their base plates and all their smooth plates especially.
Yeah, I use I think it's called like Yoo-Hoo Tack or something. It's a German brand, I think. I don't know where. I bought like I think like 8 packs like a bunch of years ago, and I haven't even gotten through like one of them.
Oh wow.
So I don't know where I would get them if I ever run out. But I think it's what Stanley used, so maybe he could tell me.
Nice.
Nice.
Maybe we should invest in them instead. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Smart.
I'm thinking that we probably should consider wrapping up.
I was thinking the same. We've
Yeah.
probably been going over 3 hours.
Yeah, I think we're well beyond the 3 hour mark. And I have to get up in less than 8 hours. So, but no, I will in the description I will link the book film we were mentioning earlier. Because I would share it now, but because it was a strong, like, I guess it has strong language, I'm not. I would probably prefer just to put that in the description, but but yeah, you haven't seen every THAC entry until you've seen that, so yeah. Shout out to Untitled THAC
real
entry.
fuckers.
Incredible.
Shout out to Untitled THAC entry by NeoGamer. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, guys, for joining us. It's been great talking to you, and yeah, I'll say it's crazy thinking that like so much with THAC, like, you know, the preparation and all the stuff that's coming up to it, you know, like the actual THAC itself, and I guess you guys making films and all of us like the judging the films and you know, getting the results and everything. It's crazy when it's kind of like all that's like in the past tense, like that's all done now, like
Yeah.
but no, it was fantastic, THAC, and you know, like, thank all of you for being here. Like, also I realized we hadn't even got to around to actually talking you know, during this THAC, to talking during the stream, talking about Pentacentry, but also
That's fine.
yeah also got like G Films involved as well, which is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really
Yes.
like Pentals. It was good. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't trying to be super competitive, but yeah, I just liked the idea of collaborating with Do Films, because Do Films had entered THAC 1, and Do Films really wanted to enter, but she just thought that it wasn't going to be possible. So then I said, oh, you know, I'll try and make it possible.
That's wicked.
But yeah, thanks everyone for coming on, and thanks to Aeronomad as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Cool.
Yeah, thanks for having
Thank you all
us.
so much.
Yeah, thank
Thanks,
you for
everyone.
Thank you for hosting us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Cool. I'll try and find it. It's never natural saying goodbye. It's just the one thing we're never gonna get good at. I think is saying goodbye. But yeah.
Everybody, get out.
Bye.
I'm leaving.
Goodbye, guys.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
All right.
Beep, beep.